The champagne glass shattered first. Then came the screams. In the gilded ballroom where Silicon Valley's elite gathered to celebrate innovation and wealth, an 8-year-old girl stood frozen in a spotlight, staring down the barrel of a gun. Security hesitated. Cameras captured everything, but one man didn't freeze. A man in a maintenance vest nobody had bothered to learn the name of, Ron straight toward death itself, whispering 4 words that would echo across the world. "You're safe now." Before you discover how this impossible act of courage connects a forgotten hero to a billion-dollar empire, stay with me until the very end of this story. And comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale of sacrifice and redemption travels across the globe. The crystal ballroom of the San Francisco Meridian Hotel had been transformed into something between a technology showcase and a Roman palace. Massive LED screens displayed cascading code that dissolved into images of smiling children using tablets in developing nations. Ice sculptures shaped like circuit boards caught the light from a dozen crystal chandeliers, each worth more than most people earned in a year. Waiters in crisp white jackets glided between clusters of guests, offering champagne that cost $500 a bottle and hors d'oeuvres that had been flown in from 3 different continents. This was the annual Tech Forward Gala, where the industry's brightest minds gathered to celebrate innovation, forge partnerships worth billions, and if they were being honest with themselves, to be seen, to be photographed, to remind the world that they were the ones shaping tomorrow. Evan Ward knew he didn't belong here. Not as a guest, anyway. He adjusted the heavy tool belt around his waist, feeling the familiar weight of wrenches, wire strippers, and voltage testers. His navy blue maintenance vest, the kind with too many pockets and reflective strips across the back, marked him as invisible. One of the worker bees who made sure the lights stayed on, the toilets flushed, and the $1 million sound system didn't cut out during the keynote speeches. He was 38 years old, though most days he felt closer to 50. His dark hair was starting to show threads of gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes had deepened over the past 6 years. Years of single fatherhood, night shifts, and the kind of exhaustion that sleep never quite fixed. He was lean but solid, moving with an economy of motion that some might have called graceful if they'd bothered to watch. But nobody watched the maintenance guy. That was fine with Evan. He preferred it that way. "Hey, you." A sharp voice cut through the ambient noise of conversation and clinking glasses. "The light in the northwest corner is flickering. Fix it before the presentation starts." Evan turned to see Marcus Holloway, one of the event coordinators, gesturing impatiently toward the far side of the ballroom. Marcus was maybe 25, wearing a headset and carrying a tablet like they were extensions of his body. His suit probably cost what Evan made in 3 months. "On it," Evan said simply, already moving in that direction. He didn't bother pointing out that he'd already replaced that fixture twice this week, or that the problem was probably in the building's aging electrical system, rather than the bulbs themselves. People like Marcus didn't want explanations. They wanted problems to disappear. Evan wove through the crowd, keeping his eyes down, his presence minimal. He'd learned this skill in another life, how to move through spaces without drawing attention, how to observe everything while seeming to notice nothing. It was muscle memory now, like breathing. As he walked, fragments of conversation drifted past him. The Series B round closed at 80 million. Told him if he can't deliver on Q4 projections, we're finding someone who can. Just bought a place in Aspen. Ski in, ski out. You should come visit. Wealth, power, the casual arrogance of people who'd never had to choose between fixing their car and buying groceries. Evan felt no bitterness about it. That would require caring, and he'd used up his capacity for caring about rich people's problems a long time ago. He had one priority in life now, his daughter Maya. Everything else was just noise. He reached the northwest corner and set down his toolbox, pulling out his voltage tester. The fixture was indeed flickering, a loose connection in the junction box probably. He'd need to cut the power to this section, replace the connector, and, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. The voice boomed through the ballroom's sound system, and the crowd noise began to settle. Evan glanced toward the stage at the far end of the room, where a woman in an elegant silver gown had stepped up to the podium. Even from this distance, Ariana commanded attention. She was in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a style that was somehow both severe and graceful. Her posture was perfect, shoulders back, chin up, every movement deliberate. This was a woman who'd fought her way to the top of an industry designed to exclude her, and she'd done it without compromising or apologizing. Evan had seen her photo in the business magazines that sometimes got left in the break room. Cole Technologies had revolutionized data security, making Ariana Cole one of the youngest billionaire CEOs in the world. Thank you all for being here tonight. Ariana's voice was clear and confident, filling the space effortlessly. 5 years ago, I stood in a garage with a laptop and a dream. Tonight, Cole Technologies has offices in 30 countries, employs over 15,000 people, and has helped protect the digital infrastructure of millions of users worldwide. Applause rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Evan returned his attention to the flickering light, pulling out a screwdriver. But technology isn't just about innovation for innovation's sake, Ariana continued. It's about people. It's about making the world safer, more connected, more accessible for everyone, especially our children. They are the future we're building for. Evan paused, his hand tightening on the screwdriver. Children. Maya's face flashed through his mind, her gap-toothed smile, the way she'd hugged him this morning before he left for work, making him promise to be home in time for breakfast tomorrow. She was 9 years old now, growing up so fast he sometimes felt like he was watching time slip through his fingers. And that's why, Ariana said, her voice warming, I want to introduce you to the real inspiration behind everything I do, my daughter, Lily. A murmur of approval went through the crowd as a small figure emerged from backstage. The little girl was 8 years old, wearing a blue dress that matched her mother's elegant style. Her dark hair fell in careful curls around her shoulders, and she walked with the careful precision of a child who'd been coached on how to behave in front of cameras. But there was something genuine in her smile as she took her mother's hand, something that transcended the manufactured perfection of the moment. Evan found himself watching despite his intention to focus on his work. There was something vulnerable about seeing a child on that stage, surrounded by all this wealth and power and scrutiny. Lily wanted to say a few words about the new education initiative we're launching, Ariana said, crouching down slightly to adjust the microphone for her daughter's height. Go ahead, sweetheart. The little girl leaned toward the microphone, her voice small but clear. My mommy says that every kid should have a chance to learn about computers and science, even if they don't have a lot of money, because everybody's brain is special and can do amazing things if... Evan saw it before anyone else did. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was training that had been burned into his nervous system years ago and never fully left. Maybe it was just the way the man's hand moved, too quick, too purposeful, as he reached inside his jacket. Time didn't slow down. That was a myth from movies. What actually happened was that Evan's perception sharpened, his focus narrowing to a single point of absolute clarity while everything else became background noise. The man was in the third row, left side. Mid-40s, beard, glasses. He'd been fidgeting throughout Ariana's speech, his hand repeatedly going to his jacket pocket. Now that hand emerged holding something that caught the light. A gun. The weapon rose in what seemed like slow motion but was probably less than a second. The man's arm extended, the barrel tracking upward toward the stage, toward the little girl in the blue dress who was talking about giving other children chances to learn. Evan's toolbox hit the floor with a crash that was immediately swallowed by the ambient noise of the ballroom. His legs were already moving, carrying him forward in a sprint that drew on reserves he'd thought he'd left behind. The man's finger touched the trigger. Gun! Evan's voice cut through the space like a whip crack, loud enough to penetrate even the distraction of 1,500 conversations. Heads turned. Someone screamed. The security guards stationed around the perimeter reached for their weapons, but they were too far away, positioned to stop threats from outside the ballroom, not from within the vetted, background-checked, invitation-only crowd. Ariana Cole's head snapped toward the sound of Evan's voice, her eyes widening as she processed what she was seeing. Her hand tightened on Lily's shoulder, instinct telling her to protect her daughter, but there wasn't time to move, wasn't time to do anything but watch the nightmare unfold. The gunman's focus didn't waver. Whatever had driven him to this moment, revenge, madness, ideology, it had narrowed his world down to a single purpose. The gun continued its track upward, compensating for distance and angle. Evan covered the distance in seconds that felt like hours. His boots found traction on the polished marble floor. His shoulder dropped slightly, his body remembering the mechanics of a combat rush, even as his conscious mind remained focused entirely on the geometry of the moment. The child, the gun, the line between them. He had to break that line. 20 feet, 15, 10. The gunman's eyes flickered toward the movement in his peripheral vision. This man in a maintenance vest running at him, but it was too late for him to adjust his aim. His training, if he'd had any, wasn't enough to process the speed of Evan's approach. 5 feet. Evan's mind wasn't thinking about heroism or sacrifice. He was thinking about Maya, about how she'd already lost her mother and couldn't lose her father too. He was thinking about the little girl on stage who reminded him so much of his own daughter, innocent, vulnerable, undeserving of the violence about to be unleashed. He was thinking, not today, not this child. The gun fired. The sound was catastrophic in the enclosed space, a crack that seemed to suck all other noise out of the room and replace it with a high-pitched ringing. Windows rattled, someone's champagne glass shattered against the floor, but Evan was already there. His body collided with the gunman's arm just as the weapon discharged, knocking the barrel upward and to the side. The bullet went high and wide, embedding itself in the ornate crown molding 30 feet above the stage. Plaster dust drifted down like snow. Then Evan did something that surprised even himself. Instead of continuing his attack on the gunman, instead of using the momentum of his charge to take the shooter down, which would have been the tactically sound decision, he pivoted. His boots scraped against marble as he reversed direction, launching himself not at the threat but toward the stage, toward Lily, because the gunman wasn't alone. Evan had processed it in that fraction of a second after his initial impact, the way the shooter's eyes had flickered to the right, the slight nod. The second man rising from his seat 3 rows back, his hand also reaching into his jacket. No one else had seen it yet. The security guards were converging on the first shooter. The crowd was screaming and scrambling for exits, and Ariana Cole was trying to pull her daughter behind the podium's inadequate cover. The second shooter's gun came up, his aim steadier than his partner's had been. Professional. Practiced. Evan threw himself up the stage stairs, eating up the distance in 3 long strides. He could see Ariana's face as she registered his approach. Confusion, fear, the instinct to protect her daughter from any threat, including this unknown man running toward them. "Down!" Evan shouted, but there wasn't time for compliance. The second gun fired. This time, Evan felt it. The impact hit him high on the left side of his chest, just below his collarbone. The sensation was both exactly and nothing like what he'd expected. A massive punch that rotated his body and stole his breath, followed by a spreading heat that turned rapidly into liquid fire. But he was still moving forward, his momentum carrying him the last few feet. He crashed into the podium with his right shoulder, using his body to shield Lily even as he felt his strength beginning to leak away with his blood. "You're safe now," he managed to whisper, the words coming out thick and rough. He could taste copper. His left arm wasn't responding properly anymore. "You're safe." Then his legs gave out and he was falling, the ballroom's ornate ceiling spinning above him. He heard more gunshots, security finally engaging the second shooter, and screams that seemed to come from very far away. The last thing he saw before his vision began to gray at the edges was a small face framed by dark curls, blue eyes wide with shock and terror. Lily Cole, unharmed, staring down at the stranger who'd put himself between her and death. Then Ariana's face appeared above him, her composure finally cracking, her hands pressing against his chest trying to stop the bleeding. She was saying something, her lips moving urgently, but Evan couldn't hear her anymore. His last conscious thought was of Maya. He hoped she'd understand. He hoped someone would explain to her that her daddy had died the way he'd lived since her mother passed, trying to protect the innocent, trying to make the world a little bit safer for children who deserved better than the violence adults brought into their lives. He hoped she'd forgive him for breaking his promise about breakfast. Then the darkness came, and Evan Ward, Staff Sergeant Evan Ward, call sign Iron Shadow, though no one in that ballroom knew it, let himself fall into it. The world exploded into chaos. Security guards swarmed the stage, weapons drawn, shouting commands that contradicted each other in the panic. Someone was screaming for a doctor. Multiple people were on their phones calling 911, their voices competing in a cacophony of terror. The neat order of Silicon Valley's elite gathering had shattered like the champagne glasses that now littered the floor. Ariana Cole's hands were covered in blood. She pressed down on Evan's chest, her expensive gown soaking through with crimson, her mind refusing to process the surreal nightmare she'd found herself in. 20 seconds ago, she'd been introducing her daughter to the crowd. Now she was watching a stranger die on the stage, his blood hot and slippery against her palms. "Don't you dare!" she hissed at him, even though his eyes had rolled back and she wasn't sure he could hear her. "Don't you dare die, not for us, not for... Mom!" Lily's voice was small and broken, cutting through everything else. Ariana's head snapped toward her daughter. Lily stood frozen 3 feet away, her blue dress splattered with blood that wasn't hers, her face white with shock. She was trembling, her small hands clutched together at her chest. "Baby, come here," Ariana said, trying to keep her voice steady, even as her hands remained pressed against Evan's wound. "Come to Mommy. It's okay. You're okay." But Lily's eyes were locked on Evan's face. "He saved me," she whispered. "That man saved me." "I know, baby. I know." A paramedic team burst through the crowd, their emergency equipment clattering as they rushed the stage. "Ma'am, we need you to step back," one of them said, his hands already moving to assess Evan's injuries. Ariana didn't want to move. Some irrational part of her brain insisted that if she kept pressure on the wound, if she stayed exactly where she was, this man who'd given everything for Lily wouldn't slip away. But professional hands were gently pulling her back, and she had her daughter to think about. She stood on shaking legs and pulled Lily into her arms, turning her daughter's face into her shoulder so she wouldn't have to watch as the paramedics worked. But Ariana couldn't look away. They'd cut open Evan's vest and shirt, revealing the entry wound and the edges of something beneath the blood-soaked fabric, something metallic that caught the light. One of the paramedics lifted what looked like a thin chain, his expression changing. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "This guy's got a military dog tag." The other paramedic, older and clearly more experienced, leaned closer. His eyes widened. "Not just military. Look at the engraving." He read aloud, his voice carrying more weight than he probably intended. "Staff Sergeant Evan Ward. Honor in the dark. This is a Special Forces tag." Ariana felt something cold slide down her spine despite the heat of the stage lights and her adrenaline-flooded system. The maintenance worker who nobody noticed. The quiet man who fixed lights and unclogged drains. He'd been Special Forces? Around them, the ballroom was slowly coming back under control. The police had arrived in force, securing both shooters, one wounded but alive, the other taken down by security. Witnesses were being separated and questioned. Someone had finally thought to turn off the still-running cameras, though not before every news organization in the country had picked up the live feed. "We need to move him now," the lead paramedic said, his team already loading Evan onto a gurney. "Trauma 1 at SF General, gunshot wound to the upper left thorax, possible lung collapse, significant blood loss. Let's go, people!" They wheeled him toward the service exit, moving with practiced efficiency. Ariana watched them go, still holding Lily, her mind trying to catch up with the last 90 seconds of her life. A tall man in an expensive suit approached her, flanked by security. David Chen, her head of personal security and one of the few people she trusted completely. His face was grim. "Ms. Cole, we need to get you and Lily out of here immediately. This building isn't secure." "That man," Ariana said, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. "The one who saved Lily. I want him covered. Best doctors, private room, everything." "Already being arranged," David confirmed. "But right now, I want to know everything about him," Ariana continued, her CEO instincts finally kicking back in, giving her something concrete to focus on besides the blood still drying on her hands. Everything. Who he is, why he was here, why a Special Forces operative was working maintenance at my gala. I want a full background check on my desk within the hour. "Ms. Cole." "Within the hour, David." He nodded, recognizing the tone that meant argument was futile. "Yes, ma'am, but please, we need to move." Ariana let herself be guided toward the private exit, Lily still clutched against her chest. Her daughter hadn't said another word, just trembled silently, her small hands twisted in Ariana's dress. As they moved through the corridor toward the underground parking garage, Ariana's mind raced. A special forces soldier working as maintenance staff. A man who'd run toward gunfire instead of away from it, who'd put himself between a bullet and a child he didn't know. Who'd whispered, "You're safe now," as he collapsed with her daughter's blood, no, his own blood, spreading across the stage. Who was Evan Ward, and why did a decorated military operative end up invisible and unnoticed in the background of her event? The SUV's engine was already running when they reached it, David's team moving with military precision themselves. As Ariana climbed into the back seat with Lily, she caught sight of her reflection in the tinted window. Her face was pale, her carefully styled hair disheveled, her silver gown ruined beyond repair. But she was alive. Lily was alive. Because of him. "Ms. Cole," David said from the front seat as they pulled out of the garage, "I should inform you that the media is already all over this. The live feed captured everything. It's spreading across every platform." "I don't care about the media right now." "With respect, ma'am, you should. The footage it's extraordinary. They're calling him a hero. Mystery janitor saves billionaire's daughter. It's already trending worldwide." Ariana closed her eyes. Of course it was. In the age of social media and instant information, nothing stayed private. Especially not something as dramatic as a shooting at a high-profile event attended by some of the most powerful people in tech. "The hospital," she said quietly. "I want updates every 15 minutes on his condition." "Yes, ma'am," Lily finally spoke, her voice muffled against Ariana's shoulder. "Is he going to die, Mommy?" The question pierced through all of Ariana's CEO armor, all her carefully maintained control. She held her daughter tighter, feeling the warm weight of this precious life she'd almost lost. "No, baby," she said, praying she wasn't lying. "No, he's not going to die. He's going to be okay. We're going to make sure he's okay." Because Ariana Cole didn't know how to process what had just happened, didn't know how to make sense of a world where a maintenance worker she'd never noticed turned out to be a warrior who'd sacrifice himself for strangers. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She owed Evan Ward a debt that could never truly be repaid, and Ariana Cole always paid her debts. The SUV merged into San Francisco traffic, sirens wailing in the distance, heading toward her Pacific Heights mansion where she could secure Lily behind layers of privacy and protection. Behind them, the Meridian Hotel blazed with police lights, news vans already setting up their cameras, reporters preparing their breathless accounts of the shooting that would dominate the news cycle for days. But Ariana wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about a man in a maintenance vest who nobody noticed, who'd run toward death when everyone else ran away, who'd used his last conscious moment to comfort a frightened child. "You're safe now." Those words would echo in her mind for years to come. Across the city, at SF General Hospital's trauma center, a team of surgeons was prepping for emergency surgery on a patient with no wallet, no ID, and no emergency contacts in their system. Just a name on a dog tag and a bullet wound that should have killed him, but somehow, miraculously, had missed every major artery by millimeters. The lead surgeon, Dr. Patricia Martinez, 40 years of trauma experience etched into the lines of her face, studied the x-rays with professional interest. "Lucky son of a bitch," she muttered. "Bullet went in at just the right angle. Quarter inch in any other direction and we'd be calling it." "You see the tags?" one of the nurses asked. "He's Special Forces." Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. "Then he's probably survived worse than this. Let's make sure he survives tonight too. Prep him. We go in 5 minutes." In the waiting room, a small figure sat unnoticed in the corner, her presence overlooked in the chaos of a busy emergency room on a Friday night. Maya Ward, 9 years old, was supposed to be at a sleepover at her friend Jessica's house, but she'd felt uneasy all evening, that strange sixth sense that children sometimes have when something's wrong with their parents. She'd convinced Jessica's mom to drop her off at home, using the spare key to let herself into their small apartment. Her dad's maintenance vest hung on the hook by the door where he always left it. His work boots sat neatly aligned by the entrance. Everything looked normal. But he hadn't come home. Maya had called his cell phone 6 times. Each call had gone straight to voicemail. So she'd done what she'd seen her dad do when something was wrong. She'd gone looking for answers. A quick search on her tablet for "shooting San Francisco tonight" had brought up dozens of news alerts, all with the same blurry footage from the gala. She'd watched the video 3 times before her hands started shaking. That was her dad. That was definitely her dad, running across the ballroom, throwing himself in front of that little girl, falling to the ground as blood spread across his chest. She'd grabbed her jacket, her emergency money from the jar in the kitchen, and had taken the bus to SF General, the nearest trauma center, the place where her mom had died 6 years ago, the place that lived in Maya's nightmares. Now she sat in the hard plastic chair, her backpack clutched in her lap, watching the doors that led to the surgical wing. Nobody had noticed her yet. Adults in emergency rooms were too focused on their own crises to pay attention to a quiet child in the corner. Maya knew she should tell someone who she was, that her dad was in surgery. But a bigger part of her was terrified that if she said anything, if she made herself real to these adults, they'd tell her something she didn't want to hear. As long as she stayed invisible, as long as nobody knew she was here, maybe her dad would be okay. She'd already lost her mom. She couldn't lose her dad too. So she made herself small in the chair, her arms wrapped around her backpack, and waited for someone to tell her that her world hadn't just shattered for the second time in her young life. The clock on the wall ticked forward. Midnight came and went. The waiting room's fluorescent lights hummed their endless, monotonous song. And Maya Ward, daughter of a hero nobody had known existed, kept her vigil in the shadows, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore, that her daddy would be okay, that he'd come home, that he hadn't left her behind for the sake of a stranger's child, no matter how brave or noble the sacrifice. Because heroes were great for other people's stories, but Maya just wanted her dad. The surgery took 4 hours and 37 minutes. Dr. Patricia Martinez emerged from the operating theater at 3:42 in the morning, her scrub stained with blood, exhaustion etched into every line of her weathered face. She pulled off her surgical cap and ran a hand through her gray-streaked hair, scanning the waiting room out of habit more than expectation. Gunshot victims rarely had family waiting at this hour, especially when they came in with no identification beyond a military dog tag. That's when she noticed the child. The little girl was curled up in one of the plastic chairs in the corner, her small body tucked into itself, arms wrapped around a worn backpack. She was asleep, her face pressed against the backpack's fabric, dark hair falling across her cheek. She couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. Dr. Martinez's professional instincts immediately kicked into alarm mode. "Excuse me," she said to the nurse at the station. "How long has that child been here?" The nurse, a 20-something named Derek, who was pulling a double shift, looked up from his computer screen and followed her gaze. His eyes widened. I don't know. I didn't even see her come in." "Find out who she belongs to. Now." Dr. Martinez crossed the waiting room, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. A child alone in an ER in the middle of the night meant something was very wrong. She approached quietly, not wanting to startle the girl. But before she could speak, the child's eyes snapped open. Alert, wary, the kind of instant awareness that spoke of practice, of too many nights waiting for bad news. "Hi there," Dr. Martinez said gently, crouching down to the girl's level. "I'm Dr. Martinez. What's your name, sweetie?" The girl sat up slowly, her hands tightening on the backpack. Her eyes were red-rimmed, puffy from crying, but they were also sharp, assessing. "Maya," she said quietly. "Maya Ward." The surname hit Dr. Martinez like a physical blow. "Ward? As in Evan Ward?" Maya's face crumpled for just a second before she forced it back into control. "He's my dad. The man who got shot. Is he... He's alive," Dr. Martinez said quickly, and watched relief flood the child's features so powerfully that it was almost painful to witness. "He made it through surgery. He's in recovery now." Maya's breath came out in a shuddering sob. "Can I see him?" "Soon. He's not awake yet, but..." Dr. Martinez paused, her mind racing through protocols and procedures, and all the red tape that shouldn't matter when a child needed her father. "How did you get here, Maya? Does anyone know where you are?" "I took the bus. And no." Maya's voice was small but steady. I saw the video. I knew they'd bring him here. This is where they brought my mom 6 years ago when she had her stroke." The words landed with quiet devastation. Doctor. Martinez had seen a lot in her 40 years of emergency medicine, but there was something about this child, this brave, terrified little girl who'd navigated the city alone in the middle of the night to find her father, that cracked something in her professional armor. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay, Maya. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you to see your dad, but first we need to call someone. A neighbor, a family member, someone who can—" "There's no one," Maya interrupted. "It's just us. It's always been just us since Mom died." Dr. Martinez closed her eyes briefly. Of course it was, because the universe had a cruel sense of humor sometimes. "All right, come with me. But we're going to have to make some calls, figure out what happens next. You understand?" Maya nodded, slipping off the chair and shouldering her backpack. She was so small, Dr. Martinez thought. So small and so alone, and trying so hard to be brave. They walked through the sterile corridors of the hospital, past rooms where other people's emergencies played out, where other families waited for news that would change their lives. Maya stayed close to Dr. Martinez's side, her sneakers squeaking slightly on the linoleum floor. The recovery room was dimly lit, quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of ventilators. Evan Ward lay in the second bed, his chest wrapped in bandages, IV lines running into his arms, an oxygen cannula in his nose. His face was pale, almost gray, but the monitors showed steady vital signs. Maya stopped in the doorway, her hand reaching out to grip Dr. Martinez's coat. "He looks dead," she whispered. "He's not dead. He's sleeping. The anesthesia takes a while to wear off." Dr. Martinez guided her closer. "You can sit with him if you want. Talk to him. Some studies suggest that patients can hear familiar voices even when they're unconscious." Maya approached the bed slowly, as if Evan might disappear if she moved too quickly. When she reached his side, she carefully set down her backpack and climbed into the chair next to the bed. Her hand hovered over his for a long moment before she gently placed her small fingers over his much larger ones. "Hi, Daddy," she said softly. "It's me. I'm here. I saw what you did. On the news, everyone's saying you're a hero." Her voice cracked. "But you promised you'd come home. You promised we'd have breakfast together." Dr. Martinez felt her throat tighten. She should leave, give them privacy, but something kept her rooted in place. "You can't leave me too," Maya continued, tears now streaming down her face. "You can't. I already lost Mom. I can't lose you. Even if you saved that girl, even if it was the right thing to do, I need you more than she did. Is that selfish? I don't care if it's selfish. You're my dad. You're supposed to stay with me." The monitors continued their steady beeping. Evan didn't move, didn't show any sign of hearing, but Maya kept talking, kept holding his hand, pouring out all the fear and anger and desperate love that comes from a child who's already learned how fragile life is. Dr. Martinez quietly stepped out, giving them space. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and made the call she'd been dreading. Child Protective Services would have to be notified. A 9-year-old couldn't be left unsupervised, even temporarily, and Evan Ward would be in the hospital for days at minimum, possibly weeks. But even as she dialed, Dr. Martinez was already planning how to bend the rules as much as possible. That child had suffered enough. She'd make sure Maya could stay close to her father, regulations be damned. While Maya kept vigil in the recovery room across the city in Pacific Heights, Ariana Cole stood in her daughter's bedroom, watching Lily sleep. The little girl had finally passed out from sheer exhaustion around 2 in the morning after hours of crying and clinging to her mother. Even now, in sleep, her face was troubled, her small hands clutched around a stuffed rabbit. Ariana's own hands were clean now, scrubbed free of Evan Ward's blood, but she could still feel the phantom sensation of his life leaking away beneath her palms. She'd changed out of her ruined gown into comfortable clothes, had answered the dozen urgent calls from board members and investors, had given a brief statement to the police, but she couldn't stop seeing his face, the determination in it as he ran toward danger, the peace in it as he whispered those final words. "You're safe now." Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from David Chen. "Background check complete. You'll want to see this. Sending secure file now. Ariana stepped out of Lily's room, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. She walked to her home office, a sanctuary of clean lines, expensive furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, and sat down at her desk. The file was already waiting in her encrypted email. She opened it and began to read. Evan James Ward. Born March 15, 1987, Portland, Oregon. Military service. Enlisted U.S. Army, 2005. Age 18, Special Forces Qualification Course. Green Beret Training. Graduated 2007. Assigned to 5th Special Forces Group deployed. Afghanistan, 2007 to 2008, 2010, 2011, 2013 to 2014. Final rank, Staff Sergeant, E6. Call sign, Iron Shadow. Specialty, high-risk personnel extraction, close protection, reconnaissance commendations. Bronze Star with Valor Purple Heart, X2. Army Commendation Medal. Combat Infantryman Badge. Classified operations, multiple entries, details redacted under national security protocols. Discharge. Honorable. February 2019, compassionate leave approved. The file included several photographs. A much younger Evan in dress uniform, his face harder, his eyes holding none of the quiet resignation she'd glimpsed at the gala. Evan with his Special Forces team, faces blurred for security, but is unmistakable even among redacted features. And one photo that made Ariana's breath catch. Evan in civilian clothes, holding a newborn baby, a woman with dark hair and a radiant smile beside him. The timestamp read June 2016. She scrolled further. Personal history. Married, Sarah Chen Ward, 2015. Daughter, Maya Elizabeth Ward, born June 2016. Spouse deceased, Sarah Ward, stroke, March 2019 Maz, age 31. Current employment. Morrison Building Services, maintenance technician, hired April 2019. Current residence, 2847 Mission Street, Apt 4B, San Francisco. Rent-controlled apartment, $400 a month. Financial status. No significant assets. Medical debt from spouse's illness, $47,000. Living paycheck to paycheck. The report went on, detailing his quiet life since leaving the military. No criminal record, no traffic violations. A parent-teacher conference note from Maya's school praising his involvement in her education despite his work schedule. A reference from his landlord describing him as quiet, reliable, always pays rent on time. This was the man nobody had noticed at her gala. A decorated combat veteran who'd saved countless lives in the shadows of war, who'd walked away from that world to raise his daughter alone, who'd taken a maintenance job because it offered flexible hours and decent health insurance for Maya. This was the man who'd stepped in front of a bullet for Lily without hesitation. Ariana closed the file and sat back in her chair, her mind struggling to process the disconnect between Evan Ward's past and his present. How did a Green Beret end up invisible? How did someone with his training, his experience, his obvious courage, end up fixing lights and unclogging toilets while drowning in medical debt? The answer was obvious, really. He'd chosen it. He'd chosen his daughter over everything else: career, status, recognition. He'd chosen to be invisible so he could be present for Maya. Ms. Cole? David Chen's voice came from the doorway. I've got an update from the hospital. Ariana looked up. Is he awake? Not yet, but he's stable. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. David paused. There's something else. His daughter is at the hospital. She's 9 years old, showed up alone in the middle of the night. Child Services is involved, but there's no other family, no emergency contacts. If Ward is incapacitated for any length of time, she'll go into the system, Ariana finished quietly. Yes, ma'am. Ariana stood, her decision made before she'd even consciously processed it. Get the lawyers. I want temporary guardianship papers drawn up. Maya Ward is not going into foster care. Not after what her father did for my daughter. David's eyebrows rose slightly. One of the few expressions he ever allowed himself. Ms. Cole, that's a significant commitment. You don't know this child. The legal complications alone, I don't care about the complications. Figure it out. That's what I pay the legal team for. She grabbed her jacket from the back of her chair. And prepare the car. I'm going to the hospital. It's 4 in the morning. I'm aware of the time, David. The car. Now. 20 minutes later, Ariana walked through the same corridors Dr. Martinez had guided Maya through hours earlier. She'd called ahead, pulled strings, made it clear that she was coming and expected full cooperation. Being a billionaire CEO had its advantages, especially in a city where her company employed thousands and her donations funded entire hospital wings. Dr. Martinez met her outside the recovery room, her exhaustion even more pronounced now. Ms. Cole, I wasn't expecting you. How is he? Stable. The bullet missed his subclavian artery by less than a centimeter. If it had hit that vessel, he'd have bled out before the ambulance arrived. As it is, he's got a collapsed lung we had to reinflate, some muscle and tissue damage, but nothing that won't heal with time and physical therapy. When will he wake up? Hard to say. Could be hours, could be tomorrow. The body processes anesthesia differently. He's been through significant trauma. Dr. Martinez's expression shifted, became more guarded. His daughter is with him. She's been here since, I don't know exactly when. She was here when I came out of surgery. I know. I want to meet her. Ms. Cole, she's exhausted and frightened. Maybe this isn't the best time. Doctor, that child's father saved my daughter's life. The least I can do is make sure she knows she's not alone. Ariana's voice was firm, but not unkind. Please. Dr. Martinez studied her for a long moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. And if she wants you to leave, you leave. Agreed. The recovery room was even quieter than Ariana had expected. Her heels clicked softly on the floor as she entered, and she saw Maya's head jerk up, her body tensing defensively. The little girl looked so small in the chair next to Evan's bed, her hand still resting on his. For a moment, the two of them just looked at each other. Ariana, in her designer clothes and perfectly styled hair, even at this hour, representing a world of wealth and privilege. Maya, in her rumpled jeans and faded t-shirt, hair tangled from sleep, representing everything that wealth usually overlooked. Hi, Ariana said softly. You must be Maya. I'm Ariana Cole. This is my fault. What happened to your father? I'm so sorry. Maya's eyes narrowed. It's not your fault. It's the fault of the men with guns. You're right, but your father was at my event, protecting my daughter when he should have been home with you. Ariana moved closer, slowly, giving Maya space to object. I understand you've been here alone, that you don't have other family. I don't need other family. I have my dad, and he's going to be fine. Maya's voice was defiant, but Ariana could hear the fear underneath it. I'm sure he is. He seems like a very strong man. Ariana glanced at Evan's still form. In the harsh hospital light, she could see the scars that marked his exposed skin, old wounds from a life of combat. But while he recovers, I'd like to help. You shouldn't be alone. I'm not alone. I'm with my dad. Maya. Ariana knelt down, bringing herself to the child's eye level. I have a daughter. Her name is Lily. She's 8 years old. Tonight, I almost lost her. Your father is the reason I didn't. The reason she's home safe in her bed right now instead of... She couldn't finish that sentence. I can never repay that debt, but I can make sure you're taken care of while he heals. I can make sure you don't have to be scared or alone. Maya's defenses cracked slightly. The doctor said they might call social services, that I might have to go live with strangers while Dad's in the hospital. That's not going to happen. I won't let it happen. Ariana reached out and gently touched Maya's arm. You can stay with me and Lily. You can visit your father every day. You'll have your own room, everything you need, and the moment he's well enough, you go home. I promise. Why would you do that? Maya's voice was small, confused. You don't even know me. Because your father gave everything to save my little girl. Because you're 9 years old and you shouldn't have to face this alone. Because... Ariana paused, surprised by the emotion rising in her throat. Because it's the right thing to do. And I'm guessing your father taught you something about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Maya looked down at her father's hand, still clasped in hers. A tear slid down her cheek. He always says that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. He sounds like a wise man. He's the best dad in the world. Maya's voice broke. He has to be okay. He has to wake up. He will. Ariana said it with a confidence she didn't entirely feel, but that Maya needed to hear. And until he does, you're not alone anymore. I promise you that. They sat in silence for a moment, the monitors beeping their steady rhythm, the hospital continuing its eternal cycle of crisis and healing around them. Then Maya spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. The girl he saved, Lily. Is she okay? Is she scared? The question caught Ariana off guard. This child, whose father lay in a hospital bed because of Lily, was worried about whether Lily was scared. She's home. She's safe. But yes, she's frightened. She keeps asking about your dad. She calls him the brave man. Can I meet her? Maya asked. Maybe it would help to see that he didn't get hurt for nothing, that she's really okay. Ariana felt something shift in her chest. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think Lily would really like that. She needs to see that your father is going to be all right too. The door opened and a nurse entered, checking charts and adjusting IV lines with practiced efficiency. Visiting hours are technically over, she said, but her tone was gentle. But I suppose we can make an exception tonight. Thank you, Ariana said. She stood, her knees protesting slightly from kneeling on the hard floor. Maya, I'm going to step outside and make some calls, arrange everything, but I'll be right in the hallway if you need anything. Anything at all. Maya nodded, her attention already back on her father. Dad, she whispered, if you can hear me, there's a nice lady here. She wants to help. Her name is Ariana, and she has a daughter you saved. I think maybe it's okay to trust her. I think maybe we're not alone anymore. Ariana left the room, her eyes stinging. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone and began making calls. Her lawyers first, then her assistant, then her personal physician to arrange for the best specialist to consult on Evan's care. She called in favors, made promises, moved pieces on a chessboard of influence and resources. Because Evan Ward had given everything for a stranger's child, and Ariana Cole took care of her debts. Dawn was breaking over San Francisco by the time everything was arranged. The legal team had expedited temporary guardianship papers. Child Services had been notified and, with the right pressure applied, had agreed to the arrangement given the extraordinary circumstances. Ariana's Pacific Heights mansion was being prepared for a new guest. A room for Maya, clothes in her size, toiletries, everything a 9-year-old girl might need. Dr. Martinez found Ariana in the hallway, holding a cup of terrible hospital coffee and staring out a window at the lightening sky. You're still here, the doctor observed. So are you. I work here. What's your excuse? Ariana smiled tiredly. I'm making sure a little girl doesn't fall through the cracks of a system that wasn't designed to care about individual stories. The guardianship papers came through. You worked fast. Dr. Martinez sipped her own coffee. I have to admit, when I first heard Ariana Cole was coming to the hospital, I expected, well, not this. I expected a photo op, a PR move. Rich woman salving her conscience. I don't do photo ops at 4 a.m. No, I suppose you don't. The doctor's expression softened. That's a good kid in there, brave. Scared out of her mind, but trying not to show it. She's been through too much already for her age. Then we make sure she doesn't go through any more alone. They stood in companionable silence for a moment. Then Dr. Martinez spoke again. Ward's lucky, you know, not just in surviving the shooting, lucky that someone like you was there, that you're someone who pays attention to debts. I'm not doing this out of obligation. No? Then what? Ariana considered the question. That little girl in there asked if Lily was okay. Her father is in a hospital bed because of my daughter, and she was worried about whether Lily was scared. That kind of compassion doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from how she was raised, from the kind of man her father is. She set down her coffee cup. I want my daughter to grow up knowing people like that exist. I want her to understand what real courage looks like. And I want Maya to know that her father's sacrifice mattered, that it changed things. Changed what things? Everything, Ariana said simply. Inside the recovery room, Maya had finally fallen asleep in the chair, her head resting on the edge of Evan's bed, her hand still holding his. She looked impossibly young in sleep. All the adult bravery she'd been forcing herself to maintain finally dropped away to reveal the frightened child underneath. Evan's eyes moved beneath his closed lids, caught in whatever dreams anesthesia and trauma had created. His hand, the one Maya was holding, twitched slightly. The monitors continued their steady beeping, each one a promise that life continued, that breath followed breath, that morning always came after even the darkest night. Somewhere in the building, a baby was born. Someone else was told their loved one hadn't made it. 1,000 small human dramas played out in the fluorescent-lit rooms and sterile corridors. The hospital kept its eternal vigil, witnessing the best and worst of what humans could do to and for each other. But in that small recovery room, something else was happening. Something that transcended the clinical efficiency of modern medicine. A connection was being forged between people who should never have met, a billionaire CEO and a maintenance worker's daughter. Between privilege and struggle. Between two little girls who'd both faced death too young. Between a father who'd sacrificed everything and a mother who was learning what true heroism looked like. The sun rose fully over the city, painting the bay in shades of gold and pink. Early morning traffic began its familiar symphony. People woke to news alerts about the shooting, to footage that had gone viral overnight, to a story that was already being told and retold across the world with varying degrees of accuracy. But the truth was simpler and more complex than any headline could capture. A man had seen a child in danger and had run toward that danger without thought for his own safety. A little girl had lost her mother, and now faced losing her father. A woman had seen her daughter's life saved and was learning that some debts could never be repaid, only honored. And in the space between what was lost and what was saved, between sacrifice and gratitude, between the world as it was and the world as it could be, something new was being built. Something that looked a lot like hope. Evan Ward woke to pain. It wasn't the sharp, immediate agony of the bullet's impact. That memory was already fading into the hazy blur of adrenaline and shock. This was different. A deep, grinding ache that radiated from his left shoulder through his entire chest, made worse by every breath. His mouth tasted like copper and antiseptic. His eyelids felt weighted, fighting against him as he tried to force them open. The first thing he saw was white ceiling tiles. Hospital, his mind supplied automatically. The second thing he registered was the steady beeping of monitors, the smell of disinfectant, the particular quality of filtered air that all medical facilities shared. And the third thing, the thing that made his heart rate spike enough to trigger a change in the monitor's rhythm, was the small hand wrapped around his own. He turned his head slowly, every movement an effort. Maya was asleep in the chair beside his bed, her face pressed against the mattress, one hand clutching his while the other was tucked under her cheek. Her hair was tangled, her clothes rumpled, and there were tear tracks dried on her face. The sight of her hit him harder than the bullet had. She was supposed to be at Jessica's house. Safe. Away from hospitals and trauma and the kinds of memories that carved themselves into a child's soul and never quite healed. He'd tried so hard to keep her away from this, from violence, from fear, from the possibility of losing another parent in a place that smelled like death disguised as healing. He'd failed. Evan tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. He managed a rough sound somewhere between a cough and a groan, and Maya's eyes snapped open immediately. For a heartbeat, she just stared at him, her expression frozen between hope and terror, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "Dad?" Her voice was tiny, fragile. "Daddy? You're awake?" He squeezed her hand, putting every ounce of reassurance he could muster into that simple gesture. "Hey, baby girl," he managed, his voice rough as gravel. "I'm okay. I'm right here." Maya's face crumpled and she started crying, not the quiet, controlled tears she'd been forcing herself to hold back, but full, body-shaking sobs of relief and exhaustion and fear finally released. She pressed her forehead against his hand, her small body trembling. "You promised," she said between sobs. "You promised you'd come home. You promised breakfast." "I know." Evan's own eyes burned. I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I scared you. I saw the video. I saw you get shot. I thought she couldn't finish the sentence. But I'm okay. See? Still here, still your annoying dad. He tried for a smile, though his face felt stiff and wrong. Takes more than a bullet to get rid of me. Maya lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. That's not funny. No, Evan agreed quietly. No, it's not. You're right. He took a careful breath, testing his lung capacity. The pain was significant but manageable. He'd survived worse. How long have I been out? All night? It's morning now, Friday morning. Maya wiped her face with the back of her hand. The doctor said you'd wake up soon. She said you were lucky, that if the bullet had been a little bit different, you'd be dead. The blunt honesty of it was so typically Maya that Evan felt something in his chest ease slightly despite the pain. His daughter had never been one to sugarcoat reality. She'd learned too young that the world didn't soften its blows just because you were small. Well, I'm not dead, and I'm not planning on it anytime soon. He shifted slightly, trying to sit up, and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his shoulder. Jesus. Don't move! Maya stood up, reaching for the call button. The nurse said you're supposed to stay still. I should tell someone you're awake. In a minute. Evan caught her hand before she could press the button. Just give me a minute with you first, please. Maya hesitated, then settled back into the chair, though her hand remained close to the call button. Her protective instinct was showing, that fierce determination to take care of him that had developed after Sarah died. It broke his heart and made him proud in equal measure. Why were you at the gala, Dad? Maya asked quietly. You said it was just a maintenance shift. You said it would be boring. You didn't tell me there would be important people there, or cameras, or... Her voice dropped to a whisper. Or guns. Evan closed his eyes briefly. I didn't know. It was supposed to be boring. Fix some lights, make sure the sound system worked, go home. Just another Friday night shift. He opened his eyes again, meeting her gaze. The guns, that wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody expected that. But when it did happen, you ran toward them. It wasn't a question. Everyone else was running away, and you ran toward the danger. Why would you do that? Because there was a little girl on that stage, Maya. A little girl about your age who was in danger. So you decided she was worth dying for? Maya's voice cracked with anger now, the fear transforming into fury. You decided some stranger's kid was more important than your own daughter? The accusation landed like a physical blow. Evan had known this conversation would come eventually, had been dreading it even as he'd thrown himself in front of that bullet. Because Maya was right. In choosing to protect Lily Cole, he'd risked leaving his own daughter orphaned. What kind of calculus made that acceptable? No, he said firmly. No, Maya, that's not what I decided. I didn't decide she was more important than you. I just decided that I couldn't stand there and watch a child die when I had a chance to stop it. He paused, searching for words that would make sense to a 9-year-old. You know how sometimes you see someone being mean to another kid at school, and even though it's easier to just walk away, you stand up for them anyway because it's the right thing to do? That's different. I don't get shot at school. Fair point. Evan allowed himself a small, painful smile. But the principle is the same. When you see someone in danger and you have the ability to help, you help. Even if it's hard, even if it's scary. That's what your mom would have done. That's what I want you to learn to do. But what if you died? Maya's voice was small again, the anger draining away into exhaustion. What was I supposed to do then? I already don't have a mom. I can't lose you too. You're not going to lose me. Evan squeezed her hand again. I'm too stubborn to die, remember? Your mom used to say I was too ornery for heaven and too annoying for hell, so I'm stuck here on earth. Maya's lips twitched in something that might have been the beginning of a smile. Mom never said ornery. She said pig-headed. Same difference. The conversation was exhausting him, his body still struggling to recover from the trauma and surgery, but he forced himself to stay focused. This was important. Maya needed to hear this. Listen to me, baby girl. What happened last night was scary and terrible, and I never want you to have to go through something like that again. but I can't promise I'll never put myself in danger to help someone. That's part of who I am. It's part of how I was trained, how I lived for a lot of years before you were born. The Special Forces stuff, Maya said quietly. I saw your dog tag on the news. They're calling you a hero, saying you were some kind of secret soldier. Evan winced. He'd hoped to keep that part of his life separate, contained. Maya knew he'd been in the army, but he'd never given her details. Never told her about the missions, the combat, the things he'd done and seen. She was too young for that darkness. Yeah, that was a long time ago, though. Was it like last night, running toward danger? Sometimes. But that was a job, Maya. That was what I was trained for. Last night was just instinct. The door opened and Dr. Martinez entered, her face brightening when she saw Evan's open eyes. Well, there you are. Welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Ward, or should I say Staff Sergeant Ward. Just Evan is fine. He glanced at Maya. You've met my daughter? I have. She's been keeping vigil like a professional, wouldn't leave your side all night. Dr. Martinez approached the bed, checking monitors and IV lines with practiced efficiency. How's the pain level, 1 to 10? Maybe a 6, 7 when I breathe deep. That's to be expected. The bullet collapsed your left lung. We had to reinflate it surgically. You're going to feel that for a while. She shone a light in his eyes, checking pupil response. But overall, you're incredibly lucky. Another centimeter in any direction, and we'd be having a very different conversation, or no conversation at all. So I've been told. You'll be here for at least a week, probably longer. Physical therapy after that. The shoulder damage was significant. You're looking at months of recovery. Dr. Martinez stepped back, making notes on her tablet. You also need to know that your story has gone viral. The shooting was live streamed. Video of you protecting that child has been viewed millions of times. There are reporters camped outside the hospital right now. Evan felt his stomach drop. Wonderful. There's more. Dr. Martinez glanced at Maya, then back at Evan. Ariana Cole, the CEO whose daughter you saved, has been here since 4 this morning. She's arranged several things. First, she's covering all your medical expenses, every penny. Second, she's insisted on bringing in specialists to consult on your care. And third, she paused. She's obtained temporary guardianship of Maya while you recover. Evan's brain stuttered, trying to process that. She what? I'm staying with her, Maya said quickly, just until you're better. She has a daughter named Lily, the girl you saved. They have a big house, and Ms. Cole said I can visit you every day, and I don't have to go to foster care and... Slow down. Evan's head was spinning. Maya, I don't understand. Why would Ariana Cole... Because you saved her kid, Dad. And because she's actually really nice. And because I was here alone, and they were going to call social services, and she said she wouldn't let that happen. Maya's words tumbled over each other. She wants to help us. She wants to make sure we're okay. Evan looked at Dr. Martinez, seeking confirmation that he hadn't woken up in some alternate reality. Is this real? Very real. Miss Cole was quite insistent. The paperwork is all legal and proper. Maya will be well cared for while you recover, and you don't have to worry about her being alone or going into the system. The doctor's expression softened. She seems genuinely committed to this, Evan. I was skeptical at first too, but I've watched her with Maya. This isn't a PR stunt. I want to talk to her. She's in the waiting room, has been for hours. Should I send her in? Evan looked down at himself. Hospital gown, tubes and wires everywhere, probably looking like death warmed over. Not exactly how he'd choose to meet a billionaire CEO to whom he now apparently owed an impossible debt on top of the one she claimed to owe him. But he needed to understand what was happening, needed to look this woman in the eye and figure out if Maya was truly safe with her. Yeah, he said. Send her in. Dr. Martinez nodded and left. Maya squeezed Evan's hand. She's nice, Dad, I promise. And her daughter really wants to meet you. She keeps calling you the brave man and asking if you're going to be okay. Before Evan could respond, the door opened again and Ariana Cole entered. She was different from the polished CEO he'd glimpsed on stage last night. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater rather than a designer gown. And her face was bare of makeup, showing the exhaustion of a sleepless night. But her eyes, those were the same. Sharp, intelligent, assessing. She stopped just inside the door, her gaze moving from Evan to Maya and back again. Mr. Ward, I'm glad you're awake. Ms. Cole, Evan's voice was still rough. I understand I have you to thank for taking care of my daughter. You have yourself to thank for that. I'm simply returning the favor. She moved closer, but maintained a respectful distance. Your daughter saved my daughter's life. That's not a debt that can be repaid with money or favors, but I can make sure Maya is safe and cared for while you recover. If you'll let me. Why? The question came out more bluntly than Evan intended. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. I just did what anyone would have done. That's where you're wrong. Ariana's voice was quiet but firm. Most people ran away. Security froze. Everyone with training and weapons was too slow or too far. You were the only one who ran toward the danger, who put yourself between a bullet and my child without hesitation. She paused. I've spent the night reading your military file. What I was cleared to see of it anyway. You've spent your life protecting people. Let someone protect your daughter for once. Please. Evan studied her face, looking for signs of pity or condescension or the particular kind of guilt-driven charity that rich people sometimes displayed. But all he saw was genuine emotion. Gratitude, yes, but also something that looked like understanding, like she actually grasped what he'd given up last night. I don't need charity, he said carefully. Good, because I'm not offering it. I'm offering a partnership. You gave my family everything. Let my family give yours something back. Let Maya stay with us, visit you every day, have stability while you heal. Let me cover the medical costs so you're not drowning in debt on top of recovering from a gunshot wound. Ariana's voice took on an edge of steel. And when you're healed, I want to offer you a position at Cole Technologies. Director of Personal Security, 6-figure salary, full benefits, flexible schedule. Put those special forces skills to better use than fixing broken toilets. I like fixing broken toilets, Evan said automatically, then realized how absurd that sounded. They're simple, predictable. Nobody shoots at me. Clearly that's not entirely true. Ariana allowed herself a small smile. Look, I'm not trying to rescue you or save you or any of that patronizing nonsense. I'm offering you options. A way forward that doesn't involve drowning in debt and working yourself to death in a job that doesn't use a fraction of your abilities. You can say no. But Maya deserves to have her father healthy and present, and you deserve to have a life that's more than just survival mode. Maya was watching the exchange with wide eyes, her hand still gripping Evan's. He could feel her hope in that grip, her desperate wish that he'd say yes, that he'd accept this unexpected lifeline. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. Ariana glanced at Maya. In the meantime, Maya is welcome to stay with us. No strings attached. Whether you take the job or not, whether you accept any help at all, she's welcome. That's not negotiable. You barely know her. I know she's brave enough to cross the city alone in the middle of the night to find her father. I know she was worried about whether my daughter was scared even though her own father was in surgery. I know she's been through too much already for her age. Ariana's voice softened. And I know what it's like to be a single parent trying to balance everything, even though I have resources you don't. The fundamentals are the same. We do whatever it takes for our kids. Evan felt something in his chest unclench slightly. This woman understood. She wasn't looking at him with pity or treating him like a charity case. She was speaking to him parent to parent, one person who'd stared down the possibility of losing a child to another. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, Maya can stay with you, but I want to see where she'll be living. I want to meet your daughter. And I want your word that if at any point this arrangement doesn't work, you'll tell me immediately. You have my word. Ariana pulled out her phone. And you can see where she'll be staying right now if you'd like. I can video call home, show you her room, introduce you to Lily. Would that help? Yeah, it would. Ariana tapped her phone and a few seconds later a video call connected. A small face appeared on screen, Lily Cole, her dark hair tousled, wearing pajamas with cartoon characters. Her eyes widened when she saw the phone's camera. Mommy, is he awake? Is the brave man okay? He's awake, sweetheart. His name is Mr. Ward, and he wants to meet you. Can you say hello?" Lily's face broke into a shy smile. "Hi, Mr. Ward. Thank you for saving me. Are you going to be okay? I was really worried about you." Evan felt his throat tighten. This little girl, who'd nearly died because of him, no, who'd lived because of him, was worried about him. "I'm going to be fine, Lily. How are you doing? That must have been really scary." "It was really scary, but you made it okay. You told me I was safe, and then you fell down." Her voice got quieter. "There was a lot of blood." "I know. I'm sorry you had to see that. Mommy says you're a hero. She says you're one of the bravest people in the whole world." "I'm just a dad, Lily, like your mom is a mom. We do what we have to do to keep kids safe." "Mommy says your daughter is going to stay with us. Can I meet her? I want to say thank you to her, too, for sharing her dad." Evan glanced at Maya, who was trying unsuccessfully to hide her emotions. "Maya, you want to say hi?" Maya leaned into the camera's view. "Hi. Hi, I'm Lily. Do you like to read? I love reading. We have a huge library, and we have a pool and a game room, and there's a really nice guest room that Mommy says is going to be yours, and it has a big bed and—" "Lily, breathe," Ariana said gently, but she was smiling. "Give Maya a chance to talk too." "Sorry, I get excited." Lily's enthusiasm was infectious. "But really, I'm so glad you're coming to stay. I want to hear all about your dad being a hero, and I want to make sure you're okay too. This must be really scary for you." "It is scary," Maya admitted. "But it helps knowing the girl my dad saved is okay. That it mattered." "It mattered so much," Lily said seriously. "My mom says I'm alive because of your dad. That's the most important thing in the whole world." The two girls looked at each other through the screen, an understanding passing between them that was beyond words. Both of them had faced death in the past 12 hours. Both of them were daughters of fierce, protective parents. Both of them were trying to be brave when the world had suddenly become terrifying. "I think they're going to be okay," Ariana murmured to Evan. "Your daughter and mine. They're going to help each other through this." "Yeah," Evan agreed, watching Maya's face soften as she talked to Lily. "Yeah, I think you're right." They spent another few minutes on the video call, with Lily showing Maya around the house, pointing out rooms and features with the unselfconscious pride of a child giving a tour. When they finally disconnected, Maya turned to Evan with an expression he hadn't seen in years, hope mixed with excitement rather than fear. "Can I really stay there, Dad? Is it okay? If that's what you want, baby girl. But you can change your mind anytime. If you're uncomfortable or scared or anything feels wrong, I know. I'll tell you." Maya squeezed his hand. "But I think it's going to be okay. Ms. Cole is nice, and Lily seems really sweet, and—" She hesitated. "And maybe it's okay to let someone help us for once. You always help other people. Maybe it's our turn." Evan blinked back the burning in his eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." She leaned forward and carefully, mindfully of his injuries, pressed her forehead against his uninjured shoulder. "I love you, Dad. Even when you're being a ridiculous hero." "I love you too, Maya. More than anything in the world." Ariana had stepped back during their exchange, giving them privacy, but now she cleared her throat gently. "I should let you rest. The doctor said you need sleep to heal. But before I go—" She pulled something from her pocket. "This is yours. They removed it during surgery." She held out Evan's dog tag, the chain cleaned of blood but the metal still bearing the marks of years of wear. The engraving was still visible. Staff Sergeant Evan Ward. Honor in the dark. Evan took it with his good hand, the familiar weight of it settling in his palm like coming home. He'd worn it through 3 deployments, through firefights and extractions and missions he'd never be able to talk about. He'd kept wearing it after discharge, a reminder of who he'd been, what he'd survived, the brothers he'd lost. "Honor in the dark," Ariana read quietly. "That was your call sign?" Iron Shadow was the call sign. Honor in the dark was a motto, a reminder that not all heroism happens in the spotlight, that sometimes the most important work is done by people nobody ever sees. "Well, the whole world sees you now." Ariana's expression was complex: respect, gratitude, and something else Evan couldn't quite identify. Whether you wanted that or not, I didn't. I know, but maybe some good can come from it anyway. Maybe people need to see what real courage looks like, what sacrifice means. She turned toward the door, then paused. I'll bring Maya by later this afternoon, after you've had some rest. She can spend the morning with you, then we'll head to the house and get her settled. Does that work? Yeah, thank you, Ms. Cole, for everything. Ariana, please. We're long past formalities. She smiled, and for the first time since entering the room, she looked less like a CEO and more like a mother who'd almost lost everything. And you're welcome. But really, Evan, thank you. For my daughter. For her future. For everything. She left, and the room settled into quiet. Maya yawned, the adrenaline of the night finally catching up with her. I should let you sleep. Stay. Evan shifted over slightly in the bed, making room. Just for a bit, like when you were little and had nightmares. Maya didn't need to be asked twice. She carefully climbed onto the bed, curling up against his uninjured side, her head on his shoulder. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into sleep. Evan stared at the ceiling, his hand resting on his daughter's back, feeling her steady breaths. His body hurt. His future was uncertain. The life he'd carefully constructed over the past 6 years had been shattered in the space of a heartbeat. But Maya was safe. Lily Cole was safe. And somehow, impossibly, they were all going to be okay. Outside the hospital room, in the waiting area that had been cleared of other visitors by security, a group of men in their 50s and 60s had gathered. They wore civilian clothes but stood with military bearing, their posture and awareness marking them as clearly as any uniform would have. They'd come from across the country as soon as they'd heard. Former Special Forces operators who'd served with Staff Sergeant Evan Ward, who'd trusted him with their lives in the dark places of the world. Colonel James Reeves, retired, stood at the front of the group. He'd been Evan's commanding officer, had written the recommendation that earned him the Bronze Star, had stood beside him at Sarah's funeral. Now he waited patiently, wanting to see for himself that Iron Shadow had survived. When Dr. Martinez emerged from Evan's room, she was surprised to find the waiting room full of silent, alert men who all turned toward her as one. Gentlemen, she said carefully, can I help you? We're here to see Evan Ward, Colonel Reeves said. He's one of ours. I'm afraid visiting hours. With respect, ma'am, we didn't fly across the country to be turned away by visiting hours. His voice was polite but firm. We're his family, the military kind, and we take care of our own. Dr. Martinez studied them for a long moment, then made a decision. He's sleeping. His daughter is with him, but when he wakes up, I'll make sure he knows you're here. How many of you are there? 12. More coming in over the next few days. 12. She shook her head in wonder. All for one maintenance worker nobody'd heard of until last night. Not a maintenance worker, ma'am. A warrior. One of the finest soldiers it's been my honor to serve alongside. Colonel Reeves's voice was heavy with emotion. And if the world is just discovering what kind of man Evan Ward is, then it's about damn time. The news broke nationally around noon. Every major network ran the story, accompanied by the dramatic footage from the gala. Slow-motion replays of Evan's sprint across the ballroom. The moment of impact. His fall. Ariana Cole pressing her hands against his chest, trying to stem the bleeding. But what caught the public's imagination wasn't just the heroism. It was the backstory that investigative journalists had uncovered within hours. The decorated Special Forces operative who'd walked away from a military career to raise his daughter alone. The widower working a minimum wage maintenance job, living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in medical debt from his wife's illness. The man who'd stayed invisible, unnoticed, content to fix lights and unclog toilets while carrying a Bronze Star and 2 Purple Hearts in his past. The executives who'd laughed at him, who'd treated him like furniture, found themselves facing public outrage. Their faces, caught on security cameras making dismissive comments about the help, were plastered across social media. 2 of them issued groveling public apologies within hours. 3 more were placed on administrative leave by their companies, which issued statements about reviewing workplace culture and respect for all employees. The contrast was too perfect for the media to resist. Billionaire CEO's daughter saved by working-class hero. The American dream and American inequality wrapped up in one dramatic package. But in the quiet of the hospital room, far from the news cycle and social media frenzy, none of that mattered. What mattered was a father holding his daughter, both of them breathing, both of them alive. What mattered was two little girls who would grow up knowing what sacrifice looked like, what courage meant, what it took to run toward danger instead of away from it. What mattered was a debt that could never be calculated or repaid, only honored. And as the afternoon sun streamed through the hospital window, painting everything in shades of gold, Evan Ward slept the deep sleep of the exhausted and wounded, his daughter safe in his arms, his dog tag clutched in his hand, while outside the room a dozen of his brothers stood guard. Honor in the dark had come to light, and the world, for once, was paying attention. The afternoon light had shifted to late gold when Evan woke again, finding Maya still curled against him, her breathing deep and peaceful. He lay still for a moment, savoring the simple miracle of being alive, of feeling his daughter's warmth, of knowing they'd both survived the night that could have destroyed them. A soft knock at the door made him turn his head carefully. Colonel Reeves stood in the doorway, his weathered face breaking into a smile that carried years of shared history. "Permission to enter, Staff Sergeant." The formal question was asked with warmth rather than military precision. "Colonel?" Evan's voice was rough with emotion. "What are you doing here?" "What do you think I'm doing here?" Reeves stepped inside, moving quietly so as not to wake Maya. "One of my best men takes a bullet for a kid. You think I'm going to hear about it on the news and not come?" He pulled up a chair beside the bed. "You're all over every channel, Ward. Hero janitor. Secret Special Forces operative. They're eating it up." "That's exactly what I didn't want." "I know, but sometimes the universe has other plans." Reeves studied Evan's face, his expression turning serious. "How are you really doing?" "Hurts like hell, but I'll live." Evan glanced down at Maya. "She showed up here alone in the middle of the night, took a bus across the city to find me. She's Sarah's daughter, brave to the bone." Reeves had known Sarah, had been at their wedding, had held Maya when she was just days old. "She's also your daughter, which means she inherited a double dose of stubborn heroism. She shouldn't have had to be brave. She shouldn't have been alone and scared in a hospital." Evan's voice carried the weight of guilt. "I promised her I'd come home." "And you did. Just took a detour through surgery." Reeves leaned forward. "Listen to me, Evan. What you did last night, running toward that gunman, protecting that child, that wasn't about breaking promises to Maya. That was about being the man Sarah fell in love with, the man who taught Maya what integrity looks like. You think she'd rather have a father who stood by and let a child die? I think she'd rather have a father who didn't get shot. Wouldn't we all?" Reeves smiled sadly. "But that's not how it works, and you know it. You saw someone in danger, and you acted. That's not just training, Ward. That's character. That's who you are at the core." Maya stirred against Evan's shoulder, her eyes opening slowly. When she saw Colonel Reeves, she smiled sleepily. "Uncle James." "Hey there, little warrior." Reeves's voice softened. "Sorry I woke you." "You didn't. I wasn't really sleeping anymore." She sat up carefully, mindful of her father's injuries. "Are you here because of what Dad did?" "I'm here because your dad is family, and family shows up." He gestured toward the door. "There are 11 more of us out in the waiting room. All of them came to make sure Iron Shadow is okay." "Iron Shadow?" Maya looked at her father. "That's really your call sign?" "Was my call sign," Evan corrected. "Past tense, I'm just a maintenance guy now." "You were never just anything," Reeves said firmly. "And from what I hear, you're about to be a lot more than a maintenance guy. Ariana Cole offered you a position? How do you know about that?" "Because I've already spoken with her security chief, David Chen, former Secret Service, good man. They're building a serious protection detail, and they want someone with real experience running it." Reeves leaned back in his chair. "You should take it, Ward." "I haven't decided yet." "Then decide. Because working yourself to death in a job that pays barely enough to survive isn't noble, it's wasteful. You've got skills, experience, and instincts that could save lives. Use them." He paused. And maybe more importantly, Maya deserves to see her father doing something that actually matters again, something that uses who you really are. Maya was watching her father's face, her expression thoughtful. Is Uncle James right, Dad? Do you miss it? The important stuff? Evan met his daughter's eyes, seeing her intelligence, her perception. She was too young to have to think about these things, but life had made her old before her time. I miss feeling like I made a difference, he admitted quietly. But Maya, you're what makes a difference to me now. You're what matters. I know that. But maybe you can do both. Maybe you can have a job that matters and still be my dad. She glanced at Colonel Reeves, then back. And maybe we don't have to be so scared about money all the time. That would be nice too. The simple honesty of it hit Evan hard. He'd tried so hard to shield her from their financial struggles, but 9-year-olds weren't blind. She'd noticed the times he stretched meals, the way he winced when unexpected expenses came up, the stress that lived in the lines around his eyes. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I can promise right now. Fair enough. Reeves stood. The others want to see you, but I told them to wait until you're feeling better. They're not going anywhere. Half of them have already booked hotel rooms for the next week. You're stuck with us. I appreciate it, Colonel. Really. James, you're not in my unit anymore, Ward. We're just brothers now. He nodded to Maya. Take care of your old man, little warrior. Make sure he doesn't do anything stupid like try to escape before the doctors clear him. I will, Maya promised. After Reeves left, the room settled into comfortable quiet again. A nurse came in to check Evan's vitals and adjust his pain medication. She was followed by a physical therapist who explained the recovery process, the exercises he'd need to do, the timeline for regaining full mobility. It all sounded exhausting. Around 3 in the afternoon, Ariana returned with Lily. The little girl hung back shyly at first, her hand gripping her mother's, her eyes wide as she looked at Evan in the hospital bed. It's okay, sweetheart, Ariana said gently. Mr. Ward doesn't bite. You can say hello. Lily took a tentative step forward. She was holding something, a piece of paper that had been folded and unfolded multiple times, the creases worn soft. I made you something, she said quietly. To say thank you. Can I see it? Evan asked, keeping his voice gentle. Lily approached and carefully unfolded the paper. It was a drawing, rendered in crayon with the earnest imperfection of a child's art. Evan recognized himself, or a stick figure version of himself, standing between Lily and what was clearly meant to be a gun. But the most striking thing about the drawing was the wings. She'd drawn massive angel wings on his back, colored in gold and white. Mom said you were like a guardian angel, Lily explained, because you appeared out of nowhere and saved me. So I drew you with angel wings. Do you like it? Evan's throat was too tight to speak for a moment. He reached out with his good hand and took the drawing, studying it with the seriousness it deserved. I love it, Lily. This is one of the nicest things anyone's ever given me. Thank you. Lily's face broke into a brilliant smile. Really? You really like it? I really do. I'm going to keep it forever. You can hang it up when you come home from the hospital. Maya said you have an apartment. You can put it on your fridge. She seemed to realize what she'd said and looked at Maya uncertainly. Is that okay? That I said that? It's perfect, Maya assured her. Our fridge has lots of room. Watching them, Evan felt something shift in his understanding of the situation. These weren't just two families thrown together by circumstance. These were two little girls who'd been through trauma together, who were finding comfort in each other, who were building something that looked a lot like friendship. Maya, Ariana said, we should probably head out soon. Let your father rest. And we need to get you settled at the house. Make sure you have everything you need. Maya looked at Evan, uncertainty flickering across her face. Is it okay, Dad? I can stay if you want. I want you to go, Evan said firmly. I want you to be comfortable and safe and not spending every minute in this hospital room. I'll be here when you come back tomorrow, I promise. You already broke one promise, which is why I'm being extra careful with this one. He managed to smile. Go, get some rest. Meet Lily's probably very spoiled pets. Eat something that isn't hospital food. I'll be right here. Maya leaned forward and hugged him carefully, mindfully of his injuries. I love you, Dad. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything. She pulled back and Lily immediately grabbed her hand. Come on, I want to show you my room and the library, and we have this amazing cook who makes the best cookies and... Their voices faded down the hallway, Lily's enthusiastic chatter mixing with Maya's quieter responses. Ariana lingered in the doorway, watching them go with an expression Evan couldn't quite read. She talks about cookies like they're revolutionary, Ariana said with a soft laugh. The privilege of never having worried about where your next meal comes from. Must be nice, Evan said without bitterness. It is. It also makes it easy to forget what really matters. She turned to face him fully. I've been thinking about what you said this morning, about not needing charity. And you're right, this isn't charity, it's justice. You gave everything for my daughter. The least I can do is make sure yours has stability and security while you heal. You're already doing more than enough. I'm doing what should be done, what anyone with resources and conscience should do when they see someone who deserves better. Ariana moved closer to the bed. I also wanted you to know I've been getting calls all day from other executives who were at the gala. People who saw what happened, who saw how they treated you before everything went down. 3 of them have been fired. 2 more are facing serious professional consequences. The footage of them mocking you while you were literally there to keep them safe has not played well. Evan frowned. I don't want people losing their jobs because of me. They're not losing their jobs because of you. They're losing their jobs because they demonstrated a fundamental lack of character and respect for other human beings. You just happened to be the catalyst that revealed who they really are. She paused. Though, if it makes you feel better, I fired my own VP of operations this morning. He was one of the ones who made comments about the help not being properly invisible. 30-second security escort out of the building. That's ruthless. That's standards. I don't employ people who look down on others based on their job or income level. Period. Her voice carried the steel that had built a billion-dollar company. And before you say anything about overreacting, let me tell you what that VP didn't know. I grew up poor, Evan. Trailer park in Nevada poor. I worked as a janitor myself to pay for community college before I transferred to MIT. So when someone in my company treats maintenance workers like they're less than human, they're not just being assholes, they're insulting everything I came from. Evan studied her with new understanding. The media portrayed Ariana Cole as tech royalty, born to privilege, but that clearly wasn't the full story. You don't talk about that background much in interviews, because it's not relevant to my company's success. And because I got tired of the rags to riches narrative that makes it sound like poverty is just a motivational tool rather than a systemic problem. She pulled up the chair Reeves had vacated earlier. But it's relevant now because I know what it's like to work 3 jobs and still not make rent. I know what it's like to choose between fixing your car and eating decently for a month. I know what it's like to be invisible. And now you're one of the most visible people in the world, which gives me a platform and resources to actually do something about it. Ariana leaned forward. Here's what I'm thinking, Evan. You take the job, Director of Personal Security. Salary of $250,000 a year, plus benefits, plus housing allowance if you need it. But that's just the starting point. I also want to establish the Evan Ward Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting single-parent military veterans. Job placement, housing assistance, childcare support, college funds for their kids. Everything you needed and didn't have when Sarah died. Evan felt like he'd been hit by a second bullet. You want a what? I want to turn your story into something that helps thousands of families. I want to make sure no other veteran has to choose between being present for their kid and being able to afford rent. Her voice carried absolute conviction. I've already spoken with my lawyers and financial advisors. I'm prepared to seed the foundation with $50 million, more if needed as we scale up. Ariana, that's insane. That's the cost of 6 months of my company's marketing budget. And it'll do infinitely more good. She met his eyes. You can say no. You can tell me it's too much, too fast, too overwhelming. But Evan, you have a platform right now. The whole world is watching. We can use that attention to actually change things for people who need it. We can honor what you did by making sure other families don't have to struggle the way you have. Evan's mind was reeling. This morning he'd woken up as a maintenance worker with medical debt and an uncertain future. Now he was being offered a six-figure job and the chance to start a foundation that could change countless lives. It felt surreal, like he'd stumbled into someone else's story. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "All of it? The job, the foundation, everything?" "Of course. Take as long as you need." Ariana stood. "But know this, whether you accept any of it or not, Maya is still welcome in my home. That part isn't contingent on anything. She and Lily have already bonded. They need each other right now." "Yeah," Evan agreed quietly. "I saw that." "Good. Then we understand each other." She moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. The media wants interviews. Everyone wants your story. My PR team can handle all of that, keep them at bay, or we can do a single major interview on your terms, and then they'll mostly leave you alone. What would you prefer?" "I don't want to be famous. Too late for that, I'm afraid. But we can control how the story gets told. Think about it." She offered a small smile. "Get some rest, Evan. Tomorrow's going to be another long day." After she left, Evan lay in the quiet hospital room, staring at Lily's drawing, an angel with wings protecting a child. Is that how people saw him now? A hero? It felt wrong somehow. Heroes were supposed to be special, extraordinary. He'd just done what needed to be done. But maybe that was the point. Maybe heroism was exactly that. Ordinary people making impossible choices because the alternative was unthinkable. His phone buzzed on the bedside table. Someone had retrieved it from his apartment, charged it, brought it to the hospital. He picked it up to find dozens of missed calls, hundreds of text messages, friends from the military, people he hadn't heard from in years, his landlord saying, "Don't worry about rent, take your time recovering," Maya's school principal, offering any support they needed. And there, in the middle of all of it, a message from a number he didn't recognize. "You don't know me, but my daughter was at that gala. She's 7. She saw what you did. She asked me tonight if there are still heroes in the world. I gotta tell her yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving me an answer. Get well soon." Evan read it 3 times, something breaking open in his chest. This was what Ariana had been talking about. His story mattered not because he was special, but because he'd reminded people that courage still existed, that sacrifice still meant something, that in a cynical world obsessed with celebrity and wealth, ordinary people could still do extraordinary things. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was a way to turn what had happened into something bigger, something that helped others. Maybe Sarah would have wanted that. The thought of his wife brought a familiar ache. She'd been gone 6 years, but there were still moments when he reached for her, when he turned to tell her something before remembering. What would she think of all this? The shooting, the attention, the impossible offer from a billionaire CEO? He knew what she'd say. She'd tell him to stop overthinking it. She'd remind him that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. She'd point out that pride was a luxury they couldn't afford if it meant a better life for Maya. And she'd probably laugh at the whole absurd situation because Sarah had always been able to find humor even in the darkest moments. "I miss you," he whispered to the empty room. "God, I miss you. I could use your advice right now." The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside his window, the city carried on with its life, unaware and uncaring of one man's struggle to figure out what came next. Evening was falling, painting everything in shades of purple and gold. Evan closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. Tomorrow he'd start physical therapy. Tomorrow he'd have to deal with the media attention and the job offer and all the impossible decisions. Tomorrow he'd have to figure out how to be this person everyone suddenly saw him as: hero, warrior, angel. But tonight, he was just tired, just hurting, just grateful to be alive. The next week passed in a blur of doctors and physical therapists and visitors. Colonel Reeves and the others from his Special Forces unit came by in shifts, never leaving him alone for long. They told stories from their deployments, made him laugh despite the pain, and reminded him that he was part of something bigger than himself, a brotherhood that didn't end just because the uniform came off. Maya visited every day, usually with Lily in tow. The 2 girls had become inseparable, their friendship deepening with each passing hour. They did homework together in Evan's hospital room, drew pictures, talked about books and movies, and the kinds of small things that filled a child's world. Watching them together gave Evan hope that maybe, somehow, something beautiful could come from the trauma they'd all endured. Ariana came by less frequently, respecting his space but checking on his progress. She brought updates on the foundation plans, details about the security position, and news about the fallout from the gala. The two shooters had been identified as part of a domestic extremist group, their target chosen specifically because of Ariana's public stance on tech regulation and data privacy. The FBI was investigating whether others had been involved. "We got lucky," Ariana told him on the fourth day. "If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't reacted so quickly, the death toll could have been catastrophic." "I don't feel lucky," Evan admitted. He was sitting up in bed now, able to move more freely, though the pain was still significant. "I feel like I stumbled into the right place at the right time and happened to have the right training. That's exactly what luck is, though, being prepared when the moment arrives." She handed him a tablet. "I want to show you something." The screen displayed a website in development, the Evan Ward Foundation. It was beautiful, professional, and completely overwhelming. Sections for job assistance, housing support, mental health services, childcare programs, and college scholarships. Testimonials from veterans who'd heard about the project and wanted to be involved. A donate button that would go live once the foundation officially launched. "This is what we've put together in less than a week," Ariana said. "My team, working with veteran advocacy groups and nonprofit experts. We've got applications from over 200 families already, just from word of mouth. Veterans who need exactly what we're offering." Evan scrolled through the site, his throat tight. Each application represented a family like his, struggling, trying to make it work, drowning despite their best efforts. Single parents working multiple jobs, kids who rarely saw their veteran moms or dads because work and survival took everything. Medical debt, housing insecurity, the daily grind of not quite making it. "I don't know if I deserve this," he said quietly, "to have my name on something this important." "You don't have to deserve it. You just have to accept it." Ariana's voice was firm. "These families need help, Evan. Your story gives us a way to reach them, to raise awareness and funding. But this isn't about fame or glory. It's about actually solving problems, making life better for people who've already given so much." He handed back the tablet. "I'll do it. The foundation, the job, all of it." The words came out easier than he'd expected, carrying a weight of certainty. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, Maya's well-being comes before everything else. If the job ever interferes with being her father, I walk away. No guilt, no obligations." "Agreed." "Second, I don't do media appearances unless they directly benefit the foundation. I'm not interested in being famous. I'm interested in helping people." "Also agreed. We'll use your story to launch the foundation, then step back and let the work speak for itself." "And third," Evan met her eyes, "if this is going to work, if Maya is going to keep spending time with Lily, if we're going to be in each other's lives, then we do it honestly. No PR spin, no manufactured friendship, no pretending. We're real with each other or we're nothing." Ariana smiled, and it was the first time he'd seen her look genuinely relaxed. "Deal. Though I should warn you, real Ariana Cole can be demanding, impatient, and occasionally insufferable. You sure you want to sign up for that?" "I jumped in front of a bullet. I think I can handle difficult conversations." She laughed, the sound carrying relief and something that might have been the beginning of actual friendship. "When do you want to start? The job, I mean. Obviously, you need to recover first, but I want to be involved from the beginning. The foundation, the security protocols, all of it." Evan shifted in the bed, testing his range of motion. "The doctors say another week here, then outpatient physical therapy for 2 months. But I can do planning and consultation from home, or from wherever you need me." "Your apartment," Ariana said carefully. "Have you thought about whether you want to stay there? Because the housing allowance I mentioned, that's real. You could find somewhere with more space, better neighborhood, closer to schools that might be good for Maya." "I'll think about it." The apartment held memories of Sarah, of building a life together, of watching Maya grow. But it was also small, cramped, in a neighborhood that had gotten rougher over the years. Maybe it was time to let go. Maybe moving forward meant more than just accepting a new job. That evening, after Ariana left, Maya curled up in the chair beside Evan's bed and asked the question he'd been expecting. "Are we going to be okay, Dad? Like really okay, not just surviving okay?" Evan took her hand, feeling the small, strong fingers that had held his through so much. Yeah, baby girl. I think we're going to be really okay. Better than we've been in a long time. Because of what you did? Because you saved Lily? Because we're letting people help us? Because we're accepting that we don't have to do everything alone? He paused. And yeah, because I saved Lily. But mostly because we're both brave enough to try something new. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, I like Lily. And Ms. Cole is actually really cool once you get to know her. She's teaching me about coding. Did you know she started learning computers when she was my age? I didn't know that. She said girls can do anything boys can do in tech. She said I should start learning now if I'm interested. Maya's eyes lit up with excitement. She's got this whole setup in her office, Dad. Multiple monitors and keyboards, and she showed me how to write my first program. It just made a message appear on the screen, but I wrote the actual code. Watching his daughter's enthusiasm, seeing her eyes bright with possibility instead of worry, Evan felt the last of his resistance crumble. This was what he'd wanted for her. Opportunities, mentorship, a chance to dream bigger than survival. If accepting Ariana's help gave Maya that chance, then his pride could go to hell. Maybe you'll be a tech genius like Ms. Cole someday, he said. Maybe. Or maybe I'll be in security like you. Or maybe something completely different. Maya squeezed his hand. But whatever I do, I want to help people. Like you do. Like Ms. Cole does. I want to make things better. Then you're already halfway there, baby girl. Because wanting to help is where it all starts. On the 8th day, Dr. Martinez cleared Evan for discharge. The bullet wound was healing well, the physical therapy was progressing ahead of schedule, and his lung capacity had returned to near normal. She attributed his rapid recovery to military conditioning and sheer stubbornness. You're still going to hurt for a while, she warned as she signed the discharge papers. And you need to be religious about the PT exercises. Push too hard too fast and you'll set yourself back months. I understand, Doc. I'll behave. Somehow I doubt that. She smiled. But you've got good people around you now. Let them help. That's an order. Colonel Reeves and 3 others from his unit arrived to help with the discharge process, forming an informal honor guard as Evan was wheeled out of the hospital. News crews had been camped outside for days, and hospital security had coordinated with police to create a clear path to the waiting vehicle. The moment Evan appeared, cameras started flashing. Reporters shouted questions. The noise was overwhelming after a week of hospital quiet. Mr. Ward, how does it feel to be called a hero? Evan, will you accept Ariana Cole's job offer? Staff Sergeant, what do you want people to know about your service? Evan kept his eyes forward, ignoring the chaos, but as they reached the car, an SUV provided by Cole Technologies Security, he paused. David Chen, Ariana's head of security, was holding the door. He caught Evan's eye and gave a slight nod, as if to say, your call. Evan turned to face the cameras. The reporters fell silent, sensing they might actually get something. I'm not a hero, he said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. I'm a father who saw a child in danger and reacted. Any parent would have done the same. He paused, weighing his words. But I also know there are thousands of veterans out there right now who are struggling, who came home from service and are barely making it, who are working multiple jobs, drowning in debt, trying to raise kids alone. The Evan Ward Foundation is going to help those families. If you want to do something useful, support that mission. Donate, volunteer, hire veterans, give them the opportunities they've earned. Will you be directing the foundation? A reporter called out. I'll be supporting it in whatever way I can, but this isn't about me. It's about making sure no veteran family has to choose between being present and being able to pay rent. He glanced at the men standing around him. These guys here, and hundreds like them, gave years of their lives in service. They deserve better than minimum wage and medical debt when they come home. That's what the foundation is about. He nodded to David Chen and climbed into the SUV, done with the spotlight. As they pulled away, he could see the reporters already typing furiously on phones and laptops, crafting their stories. Let them write what they wanted. He'd said what needed saying. Maya was waiting at Ariana's house, their temporary home, until Evan found a new apartment. She burst through the front door as the SUV pulled up, Lily right behind her, both girls practically vibrating with excitement. Dad, you're home! Well, not home, but you know what I mean. Maya launched herself at him carefully, mindful of his healing shoulder, wrapping her arms around his waist. Hey, baby girl. Evan hugged her back, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her. I missed you. I missed you too. Come on, you have to see what Lily and I made. She grabbed his hand and started pulling him toward the house. Ariana appeared in the doorway, smiling at the enthusiasm. Welcome home, Evan. Fair warning, they've been planning this surprise for 3 days. Prepare yourself. Inside, the house was as impressive as the video call had suggested. Soaring ceilings, art that probably cost more than Evan's apartment building, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. But Maya and Lily weren't interested in showing him any of that. They dragged him toward a room that had clearly been set up as his temporary quarters and stopped in front of a wall that had been transformed. It was covered in drawings, letters, and photographs. Lily's angel picture was there, matted and framed, but it was surrounded by dozens of other images. Photos of Evan in his Special Forces days, retrieved from his apartment with his permission. Pictures of Maya at various ages. Drawings from both girls depicting heroism, courage, family. And letters. Dozens of handwritten letters from veterans and their families, thanking him, sharing their stories, expressing hope about the foundation. We wanted you to see, Maya said softly, that what you did mattered. Not just saving Lily, but everything. Being a good dad even when it was hard. Being brave. Showing us what it means to help people. Evan's vision blurred. He'd spent 6 years trying to be invisible, trying to just survive, convinced he was failing at the only job that mattered, being Maya's father. But looking at this wall, seeing his daughter's pride in him reflected in every image, he realized he'd been wrong. Maya hadn't needed a perfect father. She'd needed an honest one who showed up, who tried, who taught her through actions what mattered in life. Thank you, he managed, his voice rough. Both of you, this is incredible. Lily beamed. Mom helped us with the framing and stuff, but Maya and I did all the arranging. Do you really like it? I really, really like it. Ariana appeared beside him, her voice quiet. There's more. The foundation got its first major donation this morning. Anonymous donor, $5 million. The note said, for reminding us what courage looks like. The money's already been allocated to the first wave of families. 23 veteran households getting immediate housing assistance and job placement support. Evan turned to look at her, seeing past the CEO exterior to the woman underneath. Someone who'd climbed out of poverty and never forgotten what it felt like, who'd built an empire but remembered to look back and lift others up. You did that. I facilitated it. You inspired it. She met his eyes. Welcome to the team, Evan. We've got work to do. That night, after Maya and Lily had finally exhausted themselves and gone to bed, Evan stood on the balcony of his temporary room, looking out over San Francisco. The city glittered below, millions of lives playing out in the lit windows and moving traffic. Somewhere out there, veteran families were getting calls about housing assistance, about job opportunities, about hope. His shoulder ached, his body was still healing. The life he'd known was gone, replaced by something uncertain and new. But Maya was safe. Lily was safe. And maybe, just maybe, his story would help make sure other families didn't have to struggle the way they had. He pulled out his phone and opened the photo album, scrolling to a picture of Sarah. She was laughing in the image, her eyes bright, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. He'd taken it 6 months before Maya was born, back when everything still felt possible. I think you'd like Ariana, he said softly to the photo. She reminds me of you in some ways, strong, determined, won't take no for an answer. He smiled. And I think you'd be proud of Maya. She's so brave, Sarah. So much braver than I ever was at her age. She's going to be okay. We're both going to be okay. The photo didn't answer, but Evan didn't need it to. He'd spent 6 years holding on to grief, using it as armor against a world that had taken too much. But maybe it was time to let it become something else. Not forgetting Sarah, never that, but honoring her by living fully, by accepting help, by being open to whatever came next. Behind him, through the open door, he heard Maya laugh at something Lily said. The sound was light, unburdened, full of the kind of joy that childhood should hold. It was the sound of healing, of moving forward, of hope. Evan pocketed his phone and turned back toward that sound, toward the light spilling from the house, toward the future that had appeared out of nowhere when a bullet forced him to become visible. Sometimes heroes did wear medals, he thought. Sometimes they wore uniforms and carried weapons and operated in the shadows of the world. But sometimes heroes wore maintenance vests and fixed broken lights and went unnoticed until the moment demanded everything they had to give. And sometimes, if you were lucky, being a hero meant not just saving one life, but being saved in return. 3 weeks after leaving the hospital, Evan stood in the lobby of Cole Technologies headquarters, trying not to feel overwhelmed by the sleek glass and steel architecture that seemed designed to intimidate. His left shoulder still protested certain movements, reminding him with dull aches that healing took time. But the physical therapy was working. Dr. Martinez had cleared him for light duty, which apparently meant planning security protocols and meeting with the team he'd soon be leading. David Chen appeared from the elevator bank, extending his hand with a firm grip that spoke of shared professional background. "Good to see you, Vertical and Mobile Ward. Ready for the grand tour?" "As ready as I'll ever be." Evan followed him into the elevator, watching the numbers climb as they ascended toward the executive floors. "I still feel like I'm in over my head here. You jumped in front of a bullet for a stranger's kid. Trust me, managing a security team is going to be a cakewalk." David's smile was reassuring. "Besides, the team's excited to meet you. Half of them are former military. They know what Iron Shadow means." The elevator doors opened onto a floor that managed to be both impressive and functional. The Security Operations Center took up one entire wall, dozens of monitors displaying feeds from cameras throughout the building and grounds, threat assessment software running continuous analysis, communication systems that could coordinate responses across multiple locations. It was light years beyond anything Evan had worked with, even in his Special Forces days. "This is Command Central," David explained, gesturing to the setup. "We monitor all Cole Technologies facilities, track potential threats, coordinate with local law enforcement when needed. Right now we've got a team of 15, but we're expanding to 25 with the new contracts coming in. You'll be overseeing everything: personnel, protocols, training, threat assessment." Evan studied the screens, his tactical mind already processing information flows and potential vulnerabilities. "The gala shooting, what did the post-incident analysis show?" David's expression darkened. "Multiple failures. The venue's security was contracted out to the lowest bidder. Background checks on attendees were superficial at best. Response protocols were inadequate. Basically, we trusted the wrong people and paid the price." He pulled up a detailed report on one of the monitors. "That's not happening again, not on our watch." "No," Evan agreed, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "It's not." They spent the next hour reviewing security systems, discussing protocols, and meeting team members. Each person David introduced seemed genuinely glad to have Evan aboard, treating him with a respect that felt both earned and slightly surreal. These were professionals who'd chosen to work in private security, who'd built careers in this field, and yet they looked at him like he belonged among them. Maybe he did. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge. Ariana had scheduled the first official board meeting for the Evan Ward Foundation, and Evan found himself sitting at a conference table with nonprofit directors, financial advisors, veteran advocacy group leaders, and legal counsel. His maintenance vest had been replaced by business casual clothes Maya had helped him pick out, and he felt distinctly out of his element despite Ariana's reassuring presence at the head of the table. "Gentlemen, ladies," Ariana began, her CEO voice crisp and authoritative, "thank you for coming. As you know, we're here to finalize the operational structure of the Evan Ward Foundation. In just 3 weeks, we've received over 800 applications from veteran families in need. We've processed initial aid to 43 households, with another 60 in the pipeline. But this is just the beginning." She clicked a remote and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. Charts showing projected growth, service categories, funding models, success metrics. It was impressive and overwhelming in equal measure. "Evan," Ariana said, turning to him, "I know we've thrown you into the deep end here, but I wanted to ask, what do you see as the Foundation's core mission? Beyond the practical assistance, what are we really trying to accomplish?" Every eye in the room turned to him. Evan took a breath, fighting the urge to defer to people who clearly knew more about running nonprofits than he did. But Ariana had asked for a reason. She wanted his perspective, not his silence. Dignity, he said finally. We're trying to give people back their dignity. When you're drowning financially, when you're working 3 jobs and still can't make rent, when you can barely see your kids because survival takes everything you have, you lose something. Not just money or stability. You lose the ability to feel like your life has purpose beyond just not failing. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I've been there. After my wife died, after I left the service, I spent 6 years in that place. And the worst part wasn't the poverty, it was feeling invisible. Like I didn't matter, like all the years of service, all the skills and experience counted for nothing because I was just another guy scraping by. The room was completely silent. Even Ariana had stopped taking notes, just listening. So yeah, we're providing housing assistance and job placement and childcare support, but what we're really doing is telling these families that they matter, that their service counted, that they deserve better than barely surviving. Evan met Ariana's eyes. That's what you gave me, not just the job or the help with Maya. You saw me. You made me visible again. That's what this foundation needs to do for every family we serve. One of the nonprofit directors, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, who'd been in the field for decades, nodded slowly. That's exactly right. Research shows that dignity and recognition are as important as material assistance for long-term outcomes. People need to feel valued, not just helped. She glanced at her notes. I think we should incorporate that into our operational philosophy. Every interaction, every service we provide should communicate respect and recognition. The meeting continued for another hour, but something had shifted. Evan's perspective had grounded the discussion in reality, reminded everyone why they were there. By the time they wrapped up, the foundation had a clear mission statement, a detailed operational plan, and a timeline for expansion that would help thousands of families within the first year. As people filed out, Ariana hung back, waiting until the room was empty except for the 2 of them. That was good. What you said about dignity, that's what this whole thing is really about, isn't it? It's what everything is about, when you strip away all the other noise. Evan gathered the materials he'd been given, 3-ring binders full of information he'd need to study. How do you do this, Ariana? Run a company, raise a daughter, start a foundation, and somehow make it all look manageable? I don't make it look manageable. I just make it work, one day at a time. Some days better than others. She smiled tiredly. And I have help, lots of help. That's something I had to learn, accepting that I can't do everything alone, that delegation isn't weakness, that building a team you trust is how you multiply your impact. Sounds like wisdom born of experience. Wisdom born of multiple nervous breakdowns and one very stern lecture from my therapist about sustainable practices. Ariana's smile turned self-deprecating. I used to think asking for help meant I wasn't good enough. Turned out it just meant I was human. They walked together toward the elevator, their footsteps echoing in the now quiet hallway. How's Maya doing? Ariana asked. Lily talks about her constantly. I think your daughter has become the most important person in her life outside of family. Maya's doing better than I expected. She still has nightmares sometimes, wakes up scared, but she and Lily have this bond now. They help each other process what happened. Evan pressed the elevator button. I never would have guessed that the 2 of them becoming friends would be part of the healing, but it is. They remind each other that something good came from that night. Something good came from it for all of us, Ariana said quietly. Lily's different now, more aware, more grateful. She asked me yesterday if we could volunteer at a homeless shelter, help serve meals. That's not something she would have thought about before. Maya asked me the same thing. She wants to help with the foundation somehow, even though she's 9. Maybe we let them. Age-appropriate tasks, but real involvement. Let them be part of the solution. The elevator arrived and they stepped in. I've been thinking about something else too. You're staying in the guest wing at my house temporarily, looking for an apartment. But what if you didn't have to look? What if you and Maya just stayed? Evan's head snapped toward her. Ariana, hear me out. She held up a hand. It's a huge house. The guest wing is essentially a separate apartment. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, full kitchen if you want privacy. Maya and Lily are already like sisters. And honestly, Having you there makes me feel safer, not just because of your training, but because I know you're someone who'll always do the right thing, even when it's hard. She paused. I'm not proposing anything weird or complicated, just family looking out for family, if that's what we're becoming. Is that what we're becoming? Evan asked carefully. Ariana met his eyes, her expression open and honest. I think so. I think that night connected us in ways none of us expected. Not just you and me, but our daughters too. Maya needs stability, and so does Lily. You need space to heal and figure out your new role, and I need... She hesitated. I need people around me who aren't just employees or business contacts. People who see me as more than a CEO. People who give a damn beyond what I can do for their careers. That's a pretty big statement. It's been a pretty big few weeks. The elevator reached the ground floor, and they stepped out into the lobby. Think about it. No pressure, no expectations. But the offer stands. You're welcome in my home for as long as you want to stay. Evan watched her walk away toward the parking garage, processing what she'd just offered. Not charity, not obligation, just connection. The kind of family you chose rather than the kind you were born into. He pulled out his phone and texted Maya. Still at Lily's? The response came immediately. Yeah, we're doing homework together. Well, Lily's doing homework. I'm helping her with math. Can we stay for dinner? Sure, I'll be there in an hour. Evan walked to his car, a newer model sedan that Ariana had insisted was part of his employment package, and drove through San Francisco traffic toward Pacific Heights. 3 weeks ago, he'd been living in a cramped apartment, working a maintenance job, barely keeping his head above water. Now he was director of personal security for a major tech company, helping run a foundation that would change thousands of lives, and apparently being invited to essentially join a billionaire's household. Life had a strange sense of humor sometimes. When he arrived at Ariana's house, he found Maya and Lily in the study, surrounded by textbooks and papers, working with the focused intensity of kids who actually enjoyed learning. They barely looked up when he entered, just waved distractedly before returning to their work. They've been like that for 2 hours, Ariana said, appearing behind him with 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. Single-minded determination. Wonder where Maya gets that from. Definitely her mother. Sarah was always focused when she set her mind to something. Evan accepted the coffee gratefully. Thank you. For the offer earlier, about staying here. You're thinking about it? I'm thinking that Maya's happier than she's been in years. That she and Lily need each other. That living here makes practical sense while I'm getting up to speed with work and the foundation. He sipped the coffee, choosing his words carefully. I'm also thinking that I don't want to take advantage of your generosity or let things get complicated in ways that might hurt our daughters if something goes wrong. So we make sure nothing goes wrong. Ariana leaned against the door frame, watching the girls. We're both adults, Evan. We can set boundaries, communicate clearly, and adjust if things aren't working, but I think it's worth trying. For them, if nothing else. For them, Evan agreed. Okay, we'll stay. Temporarily, with the understanding that we reassess in a few months. Ariana's face lit up with genuine pleasure. The girls are going to be thrilled. They were. When Maya and Lily heard the news, they literally jumped up and down with excitement, hugging each other and already planning how they'd arrange Maya's permanent room, what posters they'd put up, where her books would go. Their joy was infectious, pulling both adults into the planning discussion despite themselves. Over dinner that night, cooked by Ariana's chef but eaten together at the family table like normal people, Evan watched the dynamic forming between the 4 of them. Maya and Lily chattering about their day, Ariana interjecting with questions that showed genuine interest. The ease of conversation, the lack of formality or pretension. This was what family felt like. Not the family he'd lost when Sarah died, but something new. Something built on shared trauma, transformed into shared hope. Dad, Maya said suddenly, can I ask you something? Of course, baby girl. Do you think Mom would be happy about all this? The new job, the foundation, us living here with Miss Cole and Lily. Her expression was serious, needing reassurance. Evan set down his fork, giving the question the weight it deserved. I think your mom would be incredibly proud of both of us.
We survived the worst thing that could happen, and we kept going. Now we're not just surviving anymore. We're building something good, helping other families like ours. He reached across the table and took Maya's hand. Your mom always said that grief wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to reshape you into someone who understood suffering and chose to ease it for others. I think that's what we're doing now. Maya nodded, her eyes bright with tears that didn't fall. I miss her. I do too, every day. Evan squeezed her hand. But I also know she's proud of the person you're becoming. Smart, kind, brave, everything she hoped you'd be. Lily, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. My dad died when I was really little. I don't remember him much.
But Mom says he would have loved seeing who I'm becoming too. She glanced at Ariana. Maybe our parents are watching from somewhere, being glad we found each other. Maybe they are, Ariana said softly, her own eyes suspiciously bright. And maybe that's another reason why this feels right, because we're all carrying losses, and we're all trying to honor them by living well. The conversation shifted to lighter topics after that, but the moment had bonded them deeper. 4 people who'd each lost something irreplaceable, finding in each other a way forward that honored the past without being trapped by it. Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Evan and Ariana sat on the back terrace, looking out over the city lights. The evening was cool, autumn settling into San Francisco with its characteristic fog and chill. Thank you, Evan said quietly, for everything. The job, the foundation, the home for Maya. I know I keep saying it, but I don't know how else to express it. You don't have to thank me. You gave me my daughter's life. There's no equivalence. Ariana wrapped her hands around her wine glass. But I want you to know this isn't about repaying a debt. Not anymore. I genuinely enjoy having you and Maya here. You make us better, more grounded, more aware of what actually matters. You make us better too. Maya's confidence has grown in just 3 weeks. She's starting to believe in possibilities again, starting to dream. Evan paused. She asked me yesterday if she could try coding classes, said you'd inspired her. She's got natural talent, asked really insightful questions about algorithms and logic structures. Ariana smiled. Maybe we're raising the next generation of tech leaders, women who will build companies that actually make the world better. Or maybe we're just raising good humans who will find their own paths. Either way, I'll be proud. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that comes from not needing to fill every moment with words. Evan thought about the journey from that night at the gala to this moment, the pain, the fear, the impossible decisions, and the unexpected grace of finding connection in the aftermath. Can I tell you something? Ariana asked. Something I haven't told anyone else? Of course. When I saw you running toward that gunman, when I realized what you were doing, there was this moment of absolute clarity. I understood that everything I'd built, the company, the wealth, the success, none of it mattered compared to Lily's life. And I understood that I'd been so focused on building an empire that I'd forgotten to build the things that actually sustain you. Community, connection, people who care about you as a person, not as a CEO. She turned to face him. You reminded me what courage looks like, but you also reminded me what matters. And I'm grateful for that, even though it took almost losing everything for me to see it. I think we both learned something that night, Evan said. I learned that I can't hide from life, can't keep Maya and myself in this bubble of just surviving, just getting by. Sometimes you have to take risks, accept help, and trust that things might actually get better. That's not a lesson I wanted to learn, but maybe it's the one I needed. So where do we go from here? Ariana asked. The foundation launches officially next month. You'll be fully operational as security director in a few weeks. Maya and Lily are thriving. What's the next chapter? We live it, Evan said simply. Day by day, doing our best, helping who we can help. There doesn't need to be a grand plan beyond that. Spoken like someone who's learned to appreciate the present moment. Spoken like someone who almost didn't have any more present moments. Evan's voice was quiet but firm. I died for about 30 seconds on that stage, Ariana. My heart stopped. The paramedics brought me back. So yeah, I've learned not to take anything for granted. Every day with Maya is a gift, Every chance to help someone else is an opportunity I might not have had. This conversation, this moment, sitting here looking at a city I thought I knew but am seeing completely differently now, it's all borrowed time. Might as well make it count. Ariana reached over and squeezed his hand briefly, a gesture of understanding and solidarity. Then let's make it count, for everyone who's counting on us, for our daughters, for the families the foundation will help, for ourselves. Deal. The foundation's official launch came 4 weeks later, held not in some gilded ballroom but in a community center in a working-class neighborhood. Veteran families filled the space, some who'd already received assistance, others hoping for help, all of them drawn by the promise that someone finally understood their struggles and was doing something about it. Evan stood at the podium, Maya beside him, looking out at faces that reflected his own journey. Single parents juggling impossible schedules, veterans carrying injuries both visible and invisible, kids who'd grown up too fast, learned too young that the world didn't always take care of people who'd sacrificed for it. "I'm not good at speeches," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "I'm better at fixing things. Lights, toilets, problems that have clear solutions. But some problems don't have clear solutions. Poverty, inequality, the way we treat veterans when they come home. Those are complicated. Those require all of us working together." He glanced at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. 4 weeks ago, I was working maintenance at a tech gala, trying to make ends meet, wondering how I was going to afford my daughter's school supplies. Then something happened that changed everything. I won't rehash the details. You've all seen the news coverage. But what I want you to understand is this. I'm not special. I just did what needed to be done in the moment. And then, because of that moment, I got opportunities I'd never dreamed of. A good job, financial stability, the chance to help other families like mine. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. That shouldn't be how it works. You shouldn't need to take a bullet to get a decent life. Veterans shouldn't have to be heroes twice, once in service and again just to survive afterward. Families shouldn't have to choose between being present and being able to afford rent. That's what this foundation is about. Making sure that every veteran family has access to the support, resources, and opportunities they've earned. Not because they got lucky, not because their story went viral, but because it's the right thing to do, because we take care of our own. The room erupted in applause. Evan saw tears on faces, hope in eyes that had carried too much resignation. Ariana stepped up to join him at the podium, laying out the specifics of the programs they'd be offering, the application process, the timeline for expansion. She was polished, professional, and passionate, a combination that made people believe this was real, sustainable, not just another feel-good initiative that would fade when the news cycle moved on. When the formal presentation ended, the real work began. Intake counselors moved through the crowd, taking applications, answering questions, setting up appointments. Evan and Maya circulated among the families, listening to stories, offering encouragement, making connections. This was what the foundation was really about. Not press releases and photo ops, but human connection. Seeing people, making them visible. One woman, probably in her early 30s with 2 kids clinging to her legs, approached Evan with hesitant hope in her eyes. "Mr. Ward, I'm Jessica Martinez. I served 2 tours in Iraq. My husband died in Afghanistan 3 years ago. I've been working 3 jobs trying to keep my kids housed and fed, but I'm barely making it. I heard about the foundation and I thought, maybe, is there really help available?" Evan crouched down to her kids' level, offering them a smile before standing to face their mother. "Yes, real help. Housing assistance, job placement in fields that use your military skills, childcare support, so you can work reasonable hours and actually see your kids. That's what we do." He pulled out a card with the foundation's contact information. "Talk to one of our intake counselors today. Start the application process. We'll get you taken care of." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me. You served. You sacrificed. Now let us serve you." Evan glanced at her kids, seeing Maya in their faces. Children who'd lost a parent, who'd watched their remaining parent struggle, who deserved so much better. "Your kids deserve to have their mom present and healthy. Let us help make that happen." Watching Jessica walk toward the intake area, hope replacing desperation in her posture, Evan felt something settle in his chest. This was why he'd survived that night. Not just to save Lily, though that mattered enormously, but to be here, doing this, helping families who'd slipped through society's cracks despite their service and sacrifice. Maya appeared at his elbow, sliding her hand into his. That felt good, didn't it? Helping her? Yeah, baby girl, it felt really good. Mom would be proud of both of us. She would, Evan agreed, his throat tight. She really would. The launch event lasted 4 hours and resulted in over 200 new applications. By the time Evan, Maya, Ariana, and Lily returned to the Pacific Heights house, everyone was exhausted but energized. They'd done something real, something meaningful, and the gratitude on people's faces had made every difficulty of the past weeks worthwhile. Over the following months, the rhythm of their new life settled into place. Evan took to his role as security director with the same intensity he'd brought to his special forces work, building a team that was both highly professional and deeply committed to protecting people rather than just assets. The foundation expanded rapidly, opening offices in 3 more cities, helping hundreds of families transition from barely surviving to actually thriving. Maya and Lily grew inseparable, their friendship deepening into something that looked increasingly like sisterhood. They did homework together, learned to code together, processed their shared trauma together, and reminded each other daily that they were safe, loved, and capable of anything. Ariana and Evan developed a partnership that was both professional and personal, running the foundation together, collaborating on security protocols, co-parenting their daughters in all but legal terms. There were moments of tension, disagreements about approach or priorities, but they'd learned to communicate honestly, to respect each other's perspectives, to find compromise when needed. And somewhere along the way, without either of them quite noticing when it happened, the partnership started shifting into something deeper. It was 6 months after the gala shooting when Evan realized he was falling in love with Ariana Cole. They were in her office late one night, working on expansion plans for the foundation, and she'd made some joke that had him laughing so hard his healing shoulder ached. She'd looked at him with such warmth and delight, so pleased to have made him laugh, and something had clicked into place. This woman who'd taken in his daughter without hesitation, who'd given him opportunities he'd never dreamed of, who'd seen past his invisibility to the person underneath, who challenged him, supported him, and somehow made him believe he could be more than just a survivor. He was falling in love with her. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if she didn't feel the same way? What if pursuing this ruined everything they'd built? What if he was misreading gratitude for something deeper? But then Ariana caught him staring and asked, "What?" with a smile that suggested she knew exactly what. And Evan decided that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the only one feeling the shift. "Nothing," he said, not quite ready to speak the words. "Just thinking about how far we've come since that night."
We've come pretty far, she agreed, her eyes holding his with an intensity that made his breath catch. And I think we've got further to go. If you're willing. I'm willing, Evan said quietly, the words carrying more weight than just foundation plans or security protocols. Ariana's smile widened. Good. Because I've gotten used to having you around, Evan Ward. You and that ridiculously brave heart of yours. I'd hate to lose that now. You're not going to lose it, or me. We're in this together, all of it. They held each other's gaze for a long moment, understanding passing between them without need for more words. There would be time for conversations about what they were becoming, time to figure out the details. For now, it was enough to know that they were moving forward together, that the connection forged in trauma had deepened into something sustainable and real. The 1-year anniversary of the shooting arrived with media attention that Evan had been dreading. News outlets wanted updates, interviews, anniversary specials. But Ariana's PR team had managed expectations, agreeing to one major interview that would tell their story on their terms and then requesting privacy. The interview was conducted in the foundation's main office, surrounded by photos of families they'd helped, testimonials from grateful veterans, and evidence of real change being made in the world. "Mr. Ward," the interviewer began, "a year ago you were working maintenance, living paycheck to paycheck, unknown to the world.
Now you're the director of security for a major tech company and the face of a foundation that's helped over 1,500 veteran families. How has your life changed? In every way that matters, Evan answered honestly. But the core of who I am hasn't changed. I'm still a father first, still someone who believes in helping others, still learning to accept help myself. The circumstances are different, but the values are the same. And you, Ms. Cole, the interviewer turned to Ariana. You almost lost your daughter that night. How has that experience shaped you? It reminded me what matters, not quarterly earnings or stock prices or market share, people, connection, using resources to actually improve lives rather than just accumulate wealth. Ariana's voice was firm. Lily and I are here because Evan ran toward danger instead of away from it. That debt can never truly be repaid, but we can honor it by making sure his sacrifice, and the sacrifices of thousands of veterans like him, actually leads to meaningful change. The two of you have formed an unusual partnership. Some might even say an unusual family. Can you talk about that? Evan and Ariana exchanged glances. They'd discussed this question, knowing it would come. Evan nodded slightly, giving her permission to answer. Trauma has a way of connecting people, Ariana said carefully. We went through something terrible together, but instead of letting it destroy us, we built something from it. Evan and his daughter Maya have become part of our family. Not in a formal legal sense, but in all the ways that actually matter. They live with us. We raise our daughters together. We work together on projects we're passionate about. It's unconventional, but it works. And honestly, it's made all of us better people. Maya and Lily, the interviewer said, the two girls at the center of this story. How are they doing? They're thriving, Evan answered, his voice warm with pride. They're best friends, practically sisters. They help each other process what happened, support each other's dreams, and remind us daily why we do this work. They're the real heroes in this story. Two kids who faced something terrifying and came out of it with compassion and courage. The interview continued for another 30 minutes, covering the foundation's growth, the changes in security protocols across the industry, and the ongoing impact of that night. When it wrapped, both Evan and Ariana felt lighter, having told their story honestly and completely. That evening, all four of them, Evan, Maya, Ariana, and Lily, gathered in the living room for a private commemoration. They'd decided to mark the anniversary not with sadness, but with gratitude. Gratitude for survival, for connection, for the unexpected family they'd become. I want to say something, Lily announced, standing up with the seriousness of an 8-year-old about to make an important speech. 1 year ago, I was really scared. But Mr. Ward, she caught herself, Evan saved me. And now we're all family. And I think that's pretty amazing. So thank you, Evan, for being brave. And thank you, Maya, for sharing your dad with us. And thank you, Mom, for making everything work. I love all of you. She sat down quickly, her face flushed with emotion. Maya immediately hugged her, and soon all four of them were wrapped in an embrace that felt like the most natural thing in the world. I love you all too, Maya said firmly. Even when you're annoying, even when Lily steals my hair clips, or Evan makes terrible dad jokes, or Ms. Cole... Ariana corrected gently. You can call me Ariana, sweetheart. I think we're past formalities. Ariana, Maya amended with a smile. Even when Ariana works too late and forgets to eat dinner, we're family. The weird kind that nobody planned but everybody needed. Evan felt tears prick his eyes. This moment, these people, this impossible grace, it was more than he'd ever imagined possible when he'd thrown himself in front of that bullet. He'd thought he was saving one child. He hadn't realized he was saving himself too, saving his daughter from a life of struggle, saving a family that didn't know it was incomplete until tragedy forced them together. Sarah would have loved you, he said to Ariana, the words spilling out before he could think about them. Both of you. She would have loved how you took care of Maya, how you built something meaningful out of something terrible, how you see people for who they really are. Ariana's eyes glistened. I wish I could have known her. She's still here, in a way, in Maya's courage, in the values she taught us, in the choice to help others rather than retreat into bitterness. Evan looked at his daughter, seeing Sarah in her features, her spirit, her unshakable core of kindness. She's still guiding us. The evening settled into comfortable conversation, the four of them sharing memories and making plans and simply being together. Outside, San Francisco sparkled with lights, millions of lives unfolding in the darkness. But inside this house, in this moment, four people who'd been broken by loss and trauma had found a way to be whole again. Not because the pain had disappeared, not because everything was perfect, but because they'd chosen each other, chosen connection over isolation, chosen hope over despair, chosen to believe that something good could come from something terrible. 2 years after the shooting, Evan Ward stood in front of a crowd of 500 people at the Foundation's annual gala. The event was held in the same ballroom where everything had changed, a deliberate choice to reclaim the space and transform its meaning. When I first stood in this room, he began, his voice strong and sure, I was invisible. Just another worker keeping the lights on, unnoticed and unimportant. Then violence shattered that invisibility, and suddenly everyone could see me. At first I hated that. I didn't want to be seen, didn't want to be called a hero. I just wanted to go back to my quiet life with my daughter. He paused, scanning the crowd. So many faces he recognized now. Veteran families the Foundation had helped. Team members from Cole Technologies, his former Special Forces brothers. Media representatives who'd followed their story. And in the front row, Maya and Lily sitting on either side of Ariana, all three of them watching him with love and pride. But I've learned something important over these past 2 years. Being seen isn't about ego or fame or recognition. It's about responsibility, about using whatever platform or resources you have to make things better for others, about refusing to accept that suffering is inevitable or that struggling families just need to work harder, about building systems and communities that actually take care of people. He gestured to the screens behind him, which showed photos and statistics from the Foundation's work. Over 3,000 families helped. 85% successful transition to stable employment. 92% reporting improved quality of life. Children who could finally spend time with their parents. Veterans who could finally use their skills in meaningful ways. This is what being seen can accomplish. Not just for me, but for everyone. When we see each other, really see each other, as full human beings deserving of dignity and opportunity, we create space for change, for grace, for the kind of connections that transform lives. His eyes found Ariana's in the crowd. She was smiling at him, that particular smile that said she was proud, that she understood, that she was with him in this work and in life. 2 years ago, I thought jumping in front of a bullet was the hardest thing I'd ever do. Turns out, the hard part was everything that came after. Learning to accept help, building relationships, trusting that things could actually get better, believing I deserved more than just survival. He paused, his voice dropping slightly. But I'm here to tell you that all of us, every single person in this room, every veteran family still struggling, every parent working 3 jobs, every kid who's learned too young that life isn't fair, all of us deserve more than just survival. We deserve joy, connection, purpose, and peace. That's what this foundation fights for. That's what we'll keep fighting for. The applause was thunderous. Evan stepped back from the podium as Ariana came forward to talk about the Foundation's expansion plans, new programs, and continued growth. But his part was done. He'd said what needed saying. After the gala ended, after the crowds dispersed and the ballroom emptied, Evan found himself standing in the exact spot where he'd fallen 2 years earlier. Ariana appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah. Just thinking about how different things are now. How different I am." "You're not that different. You're still the same man who ran toward danger, who puts others first, who shows up for the people who matter." She squeezed his hand. "You're just visible now, and you've let people in." "I've let you in," Evan corrected, turning to face her. "You and the girls. You've become my family in ways I never expected, ways I didn't think I could have again after Sarah." "She'd be happy for you, Evan, for us, for Maya." Ariana's voice was gentle but certain. "Love doesn't run out just because we've loved before. It expands, makes room for new people, new connections, new possibilities. Is that what this is? Love?" I think it is, if you want it to be. Evan thought about the past 2 years, the way they'd built a life together, navigated challenges, supported each other's dreams, the way Maya and Lily had become sisters in every way but blood, the way he'd started to imagine a future that included not just survival, but actual happiness. I want it to be, he said. I love you, Ariana. I love the family we've built. I love waking up every day knowing I'm not alone, knowing Maya has everything she needs, knowing we're making a difference in the world. I love all of it. I love you. Ariana's smile was radiant. I love you too. I have for a while now. I was just waiting for you to catch up. Always waiting for me to catch up. That's how this whole thing started. Evan pulled her closer. Good thing I'm a fast learner. They kissed there in the empty ballroom where everything had changed, where tragedy had somehow alchemized into grace, where two broken families had found a way to become whole. Outside the ballroom, Maya and Lily were waiting with identical knowing smiles. They'd been conspiring for months, pushing their parents together, creating opportunities for connection, convinced that the adults in their lives were meant to be together. Finally, Maya said as Evan and Ariana emerged hand in hand, "We thought you'd never figure it out."
And yeah, Lily agreed. We've been dropping hints forever. You two are ridiculous, Ariana said, but she was laughing. How long have you been planning this? Since about 6 months ago, Maya admitted. When we noticed Dad looking at you like you were the most amazing person in the world, and you were looking back the same way, we just had to wait for you both to realize it. Evan shook his head in mock exasperation. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Maya said, echoing words he'd said to her countless times. Now, can we go home? I'm tired, and tomorrow we have that volunteer thing at the Veterans Center. Home, Evan repeated, testing the word. The Pacific Heights house had truly become home over the past 2 years. Not just a temporary shelter, but a place where he belonged, where they all belonged. Yes, home, Ariana confirmed, where we all live together, where we're building something that matters, where love lives. The four of them left the ballroom together, a family forged in fire and strengthened by choice. Behind them, the space that had witnessed violence now held only the echo of love, redemption, and hope. 5 years after the shooting, Evan Ward woke before dawn as he always did, his body still programmed for early reveille despite years of civilian life. But instead of dressing for another day of maintenance work, he put on running clothes and headed out for his morning run, a routine that included greeting neighbors who knew his name, waving to shop owners who'd watched his story unfold, and thinking about the day ahead. Cole Technologies security director meetings, foundation board calls, lunch with Maya, who was now 14 and terrifyingly brilliant, physical therapy session for the shoulder that still protested on cold mornings but no longer defined his limitations. Dinner with his family, Ariana, Maya, and Lily, the four of them as comfortable together as if they'd always been this way. When he returned to the house, the smell of coffee and breakfast greeted him. Ariana was in the kitchen, already dressed for work, reading something on her tablet, while Lily and Maya argued good-naturedly about some homework assignment. "Morning, warrior," Ariana said, kissing him as he entered. "Good run?" 5 miles, personal best time. Evan poured himself coffee. "What's on your agenda today?" "Board meeting, investor calls, lunch with the mayor about expanding the foundation's partnership with the city." She glanced at the girls. "And I promised I'd be home by 6 for family dinner. Lily has her piano recital at 7. "I'll be there," Evan promised. "Wouldn't miss it." This was life now. Not perfect, never without challenges, but fundamentally good. Rich with connection, purpose, and love. The maintenance vest hung in his closet as a reminder of where he'd been, but he no longer needed it to define who he was. He was Evan Ward, father, partner, security director, foundation co-founder, former special forces operator. Living proof that heroism wasn't about seeking glory, but about doing what needed to be done when the moment demanded it. And he was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way he'd thought impossible after losing Sarah. "Dad," Maya said, pulling him from his thoughts, "Mrs. Chen wants to interview me for the foundation newsletter about growing up with a hero father. Is that okay?" "Only if you tell them the truth,"
that I'm mostly just embarrassing and occasionally useful. I'll tell them you're brave, stubborn, and the best dad anyone could ask for. Maya's voice was matter of fact. Because that's the truth. Evan felt the familiar tightness in his throat that came from overwhelming love for this remarkable young woman his daughter was becoming. Thanks, baby girl. Also, Lily and I were thinking, for the 10-year anniversary of the shooting, we want to do something special. Something that honors what happened, but also celebrates how far we've all come. Maya glanced at Lily for support. We're thinking a scholarship program specifically for children of veterans who've lost a parent. Full ride to college, no restrictions. We call it the Sarah Ward Memorial Scholarship. Evan had to set down his coffee cup, his hands suddenly unsteady. Naming a scholarship after Sarah, it was perfect, meaningful, and exactly what she would have wanted. That's beautiful, Maya. Your mom would be so proud. We know, Lily said simply. That's why we thought of it. She should be remembered too. She was part of your story, part of what made you who you are, part of why our family exists. Ariana was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. You girls, you beautiful, thoughtful girls. Yes, absolutely yes, we'll make it happen. The conversation continued as they ate breakfast together, planning and dreaming and simply being a family. Eventually, everyone scattered to their various commitments, but Evan lingered in the kitchen for a moment, taking in the space that had become his home. On the refrigerator, held by magnets, were the important artifacts of their lives. Lily's angel drawing still treasured 5 years later. Maya's straight-A report cards, photos of all 4 of them at various foundation events, a newspaper clipping from the 1-year anniversary interview, and a new addition, a photo from last month, all 4 of them at the beach, laughing at something stupid Evan had said, looking for all the world like they'd always been this happy, this connected, this whole. His phone buzzed, a text from Colonel Reeves. Reunion next month. 5th group guys, you in? Evan typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Bringing the family? Bring everyone. We want to meet them properly. Evan smiled, his brothers accepting his new family, welcoming them into the fold. It was just one more piece of healing, one more way that his past and present were knitting together into something coherent and whole. He walked to his office, the room Ariana had insisted he needed for the increasing demands of his work, and sat down at his desk. On the wall hung his dog tag, framed and mounted. Honor in the dark. Iron shadow. But he wasn't in the dark anymore. And he wasn't a shadow. He was visible, present, engaged with life in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory. And he was exactly where he needed to be. That night, after Lily's piano recital, she'd played beautifully, her face glowing with pride and nerves. The family returned home to find something unexpected on the front porch. A simple package, wrapped in brown paper, with Evan's name written in careful handwriting. Inside was a letter and a medal he recognized immediately. The Bronze Star with Valor, the one he'd earned in Afghanistan during a mission that had saved 6 civilians from an insurgent attack. The medal had been stolen years ago during a break-in at his old apartment, something he'd mourned but accepted as gone forever. The letter was from one of the men he'd saved that day, a translator named Ahmad, who'd eventually made it to the United States as a refugee. Mr. Ward, the letter read, I saw your story on the news, the shooting, the foundation, your bravery. I recognized you immediately, though the news called you Iron Shadow, and I knew you as Sergeant Ward. You saved my life and my family's lives 7 years ago in Kandahar. When I heard what happened, I knew I had to find a way to thank you. This medal came to me by chance. I found it in a pawn shop 2 years ago and bought it, hoping to one day return it to its owner. I believe things happen for a reason. You were meant to have this back, meant to be reminded of all the lives you've saved, not just the one everyone knows about. Thank you for teaching me what courage looks like. Thank you for showing the world that heroes exist in everyday places. May God continue to bless you and your family. Evan stood on the porch holding the medal, the weight of it familiar and strange all at once. All the lives he'd saved, all the missions, all the years of service that had seemed to count for nothing when he'd been scraping by in that tiny apartment. It had all mattered, every single moment of it. Dad? Maya's voice was soft. You okay? Yeah. Evan turned to her, to Ariana and Lily standing behind her. Yeah, I'm more than okay. I'm grateful for all of it. The past, the present, the future. For you three. For this life we've built. He held up the medal. For being reminded that nothing is wasted. That every act of courage, every sacrifice, every moment of doing the right thing, it all ripples forward in ways we can't predict. Come inside, Ariana said gently. We'll figure out where to display it properly, along with all the other reminders of who you are and what you've done. They went inside together, the four of them, into the warmth and light of the home they'd built from the ashes of tragedy. Behind them, San Francisco sparkled with evening lights, the city carrying on with its million stories, its million moments of courage and fear, connection and isolation, hope and despair. But in this house, in this family, hope had won. Love had won. And Evan Ward, who'd once been invisible, who'd once thought his best days were behind him, who'd once believed that survival was the highest goal he could aspire to, he'd learned that life had more to offer than he'd ever imagined. He'd learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters. That sometimes a bullet can change your trajectory from merely existing to actually living. That sometimes the families we choose are exactly what we need to become whole. And that courage isn't just about running toward danger. Sometimes courage is accepting help. Letting people see you, believing you deserve more than just survival. Opening your heart to the possibility that happiness might still be possible after loss. As Evan looked at the three people who'd become his world, his daughter, his partner, and the child who'd brought them all together, he understood something fundamental. He hadn't just saved Lily Cole that night 5 years ago. They'd saved him right back. And that exchange, that impossible grace, had given all of them a future worth living.